I was homeless when my eyes started showing me the success rate of everything. Blue percentages floated in the air. 0%, 14%, 100%. They hung over doors, people, cars, and lottery tickets. Every choice had a number. That morning, my landlord changed the lock before sunrise. I had $12, a dying phone, one backpack with everything I owned, and the eviction notice folded in my hand. Sleeping outside had bad odds. Begging my landlord had worse ones. Then I walked into Marvin Teague's convenience store. A $10 scratch card had one number above it, 100%. I stared at it long enough for Marvin to notice. I did not know if the number meant I would win, lose my mind, or waste the last money keeping me off the street. But I had already been locked out, so I put $10 on the counter. Marvin glanced at the eviction notice still folded in my hand. "That your rent money?" "No," I said. "My rent money died of neglect." The man behind me laughed once. Marvin slid the card over with 2 fingers, like poverty might rub off on him. "Don't scratch it here and cry," Marvin said. "I don't clean tears off the counter." I took the little plastic scraper change to the machine and dragged it across the silver coating. 10,000 tiny flakes curled under my thumb. 3 matching symbols appeared. $200! For half a second, I did not move. Then the blue number above that card vanished, and a thin blue window unfolded in front of my eyes. "Chance site active!" I almost dropped the card. Marvin leaned over the counter. "Well," I showed him the symbols. His mouth tightened. "Lucky, don't get stupid." The man behind me said, "Buy another one, lucky boy." Then he slapped $10 on the counter before I could answer. He pointed at the same row of cards. "Give me whatever he touched." The card Marvin handed him had a dead blue number floating over it. 0%. The man scratched like violence could change math. Nothing matched. He stared at the gray dust on the counter, then at me, like I had stolen his miracle by standing too close. "You jinxed it," he said. I almost told him luck was not contagious. Instead, I looked at the rack again and asked a careful question. "Chance another person wins by copying my previous choice?" 1%. "Chance I win by choosing based on the number I see?" 97%. That answer was worth more than the 200. It meant Chancite was not sitting inside the tickets, it was sitting between my question and my decision. Nobody else could grab it off the rack just because they saw me smile. Marvin saw me staring and snapped his fingers. "Do not start praying at my lottery wall." "I am not praying," I said. "I'm shopping." I should have walked out with the 200. I should have found a cheap motel, charged my phone, and thanked whatever had decided to pity me. I bought another card. This time I did not grab the first 100% I saw. I looked at the rack and asked the only question that mattered. What was the chance this card wins anything? The numbers shifted. Some jumped. Some died. One card that had shown 100% dropped to 3% when I narrowed the question to more than $20. My skin went cold. It was not luck. It was grammar. "Pick one," Marvin snapped, "you holding up the line." I pointed at a cheap loser near the bottom. "That one." Marvin smirked and handed it over. 0%. I scratched it anyway and lost. The guy behind me laughed louder. Marvin's shoulders relaxed. "Good. Let them think the first win had already burned out." Then I asked a better question. "What was the chance this card pays at least $500 today?" The rack went almost dark. One red card near Marvin's elbow glowed 92%. I bought it. Marvin watched me scratch. The man behind me stopped laughing when the second symbol matched. When the third matched, he leaned forward like he wanted to bite the card himself. $500! Marvin did not say lucky that time. He took the card, scanned it, and stared at the register like the machine had betrayed him personally. "Cash it," I said. "You don't tell me how my counter works, then let your counter tell you." The line behind me stopped watching the rack and started watching my hands. 10 minutes earlier, I had been the broke guy wasting rent money. Now my thumb had an audience. A miracle stayed private only until money made noise. Marvin counted 520s and slapped the bills down. "Take it and go." I smiled at him. "I thought customers were good for business." "Addicts are bad for business," Marvin said, "especially broke ones who get lucky twice." "Then I'll make you feel better. Give me 3 losers." Marvin frowned. I bought 3 cards with dead numbers, scratched them fast, and lost everyone. The crowd lost interest. One woman shook her head and went back to her phone. The man behind me muttered that luck always evened out. Good. I let my face fall. I made myself look hungry again. Then I looked past the dead cards and asked another question under my breath. "Which card gives me the highest total payout before Marvin refuses to sell?" The answer came like a punch. 74% over a $20 card behind the counter. Not perfect. Perfect was for simple questions. This one included Marvin's temper, the store's cash, the line, the cameras, and my own ability not to act like a lunatic. I bought the card. Marvin hesitated before sliding it over. Last one. You said that like you own probability. I own this store. Close enough. I scratched slowly, because rushing made people suspicious and because my hand had started to shake. The first panel paid 50. The second paid 100. The bonus box hit 2,000. A little old man near the coffee machine whispered, "No way." Marvin's face went flat. I tapped the counter. "Scan it. You counting cards now? On scratch-offs?" "Marvin, that's the dumbest accusation in the building, and I walked in here homeless." The old man laughed into his coffee. Marvin scanned the card. The machine chirped. He looked at the little screen, then at me, then at the screen again. "You need to leave," he said. "After you pay." "I'll ban you. After you pay." Marvin glanced at the small camera in the corner. He wanted to invent a rule. I could see it moving behind his eyes. Suspicious winner, store discretion, come back later. Anything that let him keep the cash and throw me out while the line forgot my face. I asked one more quiet question. Chance Marvin delays payment if I step away from the counter 86%, so I did not step away. I put both hands flat on the counter and smiled for the camera. "Say the machine is broken if you want. Say it loud. I would love to hear that after it paid everyone else all morning." The old man by the coffee machine turned his head. The woman with the phone lifted it higher. Marvin saw the tiny audience forming and hated every second of it. Marvin's eyes jumped to the camera, then to the raised phone, then back to my hands. The rule he wanted to invent died in his throat. He counted out what he could in cash, printed the rest as a claim voucher, and shoved both toward me. The line watched him obey. For a broke man, obedience was sweeter than the money. I tucked the bills into my jacket and turned for the door. "Evan!" Marvin's voice had lost its bite. I looked back. He nodded toward the storage hallway. "Come here a second." The old version of me would have said yes because landlords, bosses, clients, and store owners had trained me to step when called. The new version of me asked Chance Sight first. "Chance Marvin Teague plans to rob me?" 2%. "Chance Marvin Teague wants something from me?" 99%. That was safer and more profitable. I followed him 2 steps into the narrow hall. Not far enough for a trap, far enough that the line could not hear every word. Marvin crossed his arms. "What are you doing? Scratching cards. You sell them. Don't play cute. Cute costs extra." His jaw worked. "You got some method? Some app? A code?" I glanced at the rack. The blue numbers still floated there, patient and impossible. I asked better questions. Marvin stared at me like I had insulted his mother and offered stock advice in the same breath. Then his eyes shifted toward the phone in his hand. A new number appeared above it. "Chance Marvin asks about condo sale, 88%. I almost laughed. Chancite was not waiting for me to choose a card anymore. It was reading the room. Marvin saw my face change. "What? You're not worried about scratch cards?" He got still. I pointed at his phone. "You're waiting on a buyer. Condo, not house. Offer feels low, but you're scared if you push, they walk." Marvin's mouth opened. No sound came out. That silence was worth another $100. I asked Chance Sight the question cleanly. "Chance the buyer accepts $312,000 if Marvin calls in the next 5 minutes?" 91%. "Chance the buyer walks if Marvin waits until tonight?" 68%. I said. "Counter at $312,000. Tell them you have another showing. Ask them to waive the little repair credit. Don't text. Call now." Marvin's suspicion turned ugly because fear hates being seen. "Who told you?" "Your face, your phone, your cheap shoes. Mostly the shoes." "My shoes?" A man wearing new expensive shoes doesn't argue with a homeless guy over a $2,000 scratcher. A man trying to sell a condo before the next mortgage payment does. That was not what Chance Sight told me. It was close enough to sound human. Marvin looked toward the front counter. The line had grown restless. His thumb hovered over the phone. "If this is some joke, then you get to keep looking scared for free," he called. I heard only his side. First, his voice was hard. Then it softened. Then it went too quiet. "312, Marvin said into the phone. "Today, no repair credit. I have another showing." He listened. His eyes lifted to mine. For the first time since I had known him, Marvin Teague looked at me like I was not poor, not rich either. Worse. "Useful." He hung up. "They agreed," he said. "Congratulations." "How much?" "For what?" "For shutting up and never doing that in my store again." I smiled. "That's 2 services, silence and absence." He hated that. I could see it. But the condo call had cracked his world just enough to let money leak out. 500, Marvin said. I started walking away. 1,000. I kept walking. 5,000. I stopped at the edge of the aisle and asked Chance Sight without turning around. "Chance Marvin pays 12,000 if I stay silent?" 83%. I looked back. 12. Marvin's voice rose. 12,000? The old man by the coffee machine looked up again. Marvin swallowed the rest of his shout. I said, "You made more than that by not being stupid for 5 minutes." Marvin stared at me. Then he pointed toward the little office behind the counter. "Transfer. Now, then you're gone. I gave him the account. I watched him type. My phone was nearly dead, but it lived long enough to buzz. $12,000. Not a promise, not a maybe, not a client who would pay after revisions, a transfer. My knees went weak. Marvin saw it and tried to recover his old position. Don't come back tomorrow thinking you're special. I pocketed the phone. Marvin, yesterday I couldn't afford your stale hot dog. Today you paid me for a phone call. Be careful which one of us you call special. The old man coughed a laugh. Marvin's ears turned red. My phone buzzed again before I reached the door. For one stupid second I thought Marvin had sent more. It was my landlord. Your stuff goes in the hall at 6. Do not make me call someone. The old wound tried to drag me backward. I could pay now. I could run back, wave cash, and beg for the same door that had already rejected me. Chance landlord returns key today if paid in full, 9%. Chance landlord adds fees and still keeps me out, 84%. I deleted the message. A changed lock was still a changed lock. Money did not make a petty man generous, it only gave him a higher number to demand. I walked out before greed made me stupid or old fear made me crawl. Outside, Harbor City looked the same. Same wet sidewalk, same bus fumes, same landlord with my stuff probably already thrown into a plastic bin. But blue numbers flickered over everything now. Chance that alley is safe tonight, 41%. Chance that motel clerk rents to me with cash, 76%. Chance my landlord lets me back in if I pay today, 9%. I almost laughed at that last one. Even supernatural math knew a petty man when it saw one. I had cash, but not a home. I had a miracle, but no manual. I had one enough to breathe and not enough to stop being angry. Then something slammed into my legs. A husky with silver fur and blue eyes skidded across the sidewalk, leash dragging, tongue hanging out like the world had been built for his personal entertainment. A designer collar flashed under his neck. The tag read, Rocket. Rocket sat on my shoe and barked at me. I looked down at him. No. I am not emotionally available for a dog. Rocket barked again. A blue window opened above his collar. Chance following Rocket leads to owner with direct impact on Evan Rowe's housing problem, 100%. That was rude. I looked toward the cheap motel sign down the block. Then I looked at the rich idiot dog wagging his tail on top of my only clean shoe. Fine, I said, but if your owner is broke too, I'm selling your collar. Rocket grabbed his leash in his teeth and dragged me away from the motel, toward a part of Harbor City where the sidewalks got cleaner, the windows got taller, and yesterday's version of me would have been asked to leave before he touched the gate. Rocket dragged me 3 blocks before I accepted that the dog had better housing prospects than I did. He cut across the clean part of Harbor City like he owned the sidewalk, the traffic lights, and possibly a trust fund. People stepped around him with smiles. They stepped around me like I was the leash he had picked up by accident. Chance sight kept its rude little window above his collar. Owner impact on housing problem, 100%. You better be leading me to a mansion, I told him. Rocket sneezed and ran harder. I found his owner in front of a polished glass building, taking pictures of a coffee cup, while her $1,000 dog sat missing 10 feet behind her. She was pretty in the careless way rich people were pretty when they had never had to decide between dinner and laundry. Big sunglasses, white sneakers that had never touched a bus floor, phone held high, chin tilted, not one survival instinct in sight. Rocket barked. The woman looked down, gasped, and said, Rocket, you little criminal. Then she looked at me. Her smile froze just long enough to insult my jacket. I held up the leash. I assume this unemployed prince belongs to you? She took it with both hands. Yes, thank you. I am so sorry. He slips out when he gets bored. Must be awful. I also slip out when landlords change locks, she blinked. What? Nothing. Keep the dog away from traffic. Traffic does not care about bloodlines. Rocket leaned against my knee like we had been through war together. The woman pushed her sunglasses up. Her eyes were bright and completely shameless. I'm Tessa Whitlock. That name meant nothing to me yet, but Chance's sight flickered when she said it. Chance Tessa Whitlock belongs to high-value antique circle, 87%. Chance Tessa Whitlock understands why that matters, 12%. I almost smiled. Tessa dug in her tiny purse and pulled out folded bills. Reward, for Rocket, not for the bloodline comment. I counted with my eyes. $200. Yesterday I would have taken it and thanked her like she had saved my life. That morning, Marvin Teague had paid me $12,000 to stop being impossible in his store. Standards were moving fast. I took $120 and left the rest in her hand. Tessa stared at the money. Are you refusing me? I'm accepting dog ransom at a discount. Why? Because if I take all of it, you will think you bought the right to be careless again. If I take 20, you will be annoyed enough to remember my face. Tessa laughed. It was loud and unembarrassed. You're weird. I'm recently upgraded from homeless. Weird is progress. She glanced at my backpack. For once, her face softened without getting sticky. You need a place? My driver can take you to a hotel. A driver. Of course. Chance accepting ride from Tessa creates useful future access. 63%. Chance accepting ride costs pride immediately. 94%. I liked my pride better when it was fed, but I still had to carry it. I need more than a hotel, I said. I need a door nobody can change on me. Tessa nodded like I had said something simple. Then buy one. Harbor City condos are ugly, but locks hit different when you own them. Buy one. She said it the way normal people said, buy gum. The motel sign down the block suddenly looked smaller. Buy one. A door. Nobody could change on me. Tessa Whitlock had said it with a runaway husky at her feet. Like rent was a bad habit poor people had failed to quit. I hated her a little for that. I needed her kind of money more. Rocket barked toward the street market banner hanging 2 blocks away. It advertised weekend stalls at Harbor City Antique Market. A new question formed before I could stop it. Chance. I can turn today's cash into house-level money at Harbor City Antique Market? The answer flashed. 64%, not safe, not guaranteed, but much better than writing web chapters for clients who paid late and complained early. Tessa followed my eyes to the banner. You like antiques? I like anything that can become more dollars than it currently is. That's a depressing hobby. So is losing dogs. She laughed again. Rocket tried to follow me when I stepped away. Tessa pulled him back. Hey, Evan Rowe. I stopped. I never told you my last name. She pointed at the claim voucher sticking halfway out of my jacket pocket. You should hide things better. That stung because she was right. She waved the leash. If you make enough for a condo, buy one with a dog park. Rocket approves people randomly, and my grandfather thinks that means something. Rocket chose that moment to put one paw on my shoe again, as if voting. Tessa looked delighted. See, he has standards. Low, but standards. That makes 2 of us, I said. I did not ask which grandfather. I did not know yet that the dog had just wagged me toward a gate I could not have opened with money alone. I went to the market. Harbor City Antique Market looked like every scam in the city had rented a folding table and put dust on it for atmosphere. Brass lamps, pocket watches, cracked porcelain, coins in velvet boxes, paintings with fake smoke stains. Every stall had a story. Every story cost extra. Chancesight made the place glow. Most objects had numbers so low they looked dead. A glass horse, 4% chance of profitable resale. A silver bowl, 0% chance genuine. A painting of a sad boat, 7% chance anyone with taste would hang it. I had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing. 3 vendors noticed me looking too long. Predators loved a man who stared without touching. One vendor waved a pocket watch at me. Young man, estate piece, real history, today only. Another tapped a porcelain plate. Investment grade, you can feel the age. A third man, wider than his table and twice as loud, blocked my path with a smile that had rent money in it. Don't let them rob you, the wide man said. Come here, Frank Russo treats beginners fair. The other vendors laughed, which told me everything about Frank Russo. Frank wore a shiny jacket, a gold chain, and the confidence of a man who had never refunded anyone. His stall was chaos. Old tools, cracked frames, fake bronze animals, a cigar box full of coins, and one dusty bronze compass shoved under a stack of chipped paperweights. The compass had a lid dented on one side and a green-black body that looked like it had spent a decade in a garage. Chance item is genuine antique, 78%. Useful, but not enough. Chance resale today exceeds $50,000, 89%. My pulse jumped. I looked away from the compass. Frank saw me looking at a fake lamp instead and pounced. Good eye, that lamp came from a private collection. So did my landlord's mold, I said. Private doesn't mean valuable. A vendor at the next stall snorted. Frank's smile thinned. Smart mouth, small wallet, medium mouth, recently improved wallet. Then buy something before your confidence expires. He pushed the fake lamp toward me. Chance profitable resale, 0%. I picked up a cracked paperweight from the pile above the compass. How much for the junk box? Frank's eyebrows lifted. That junk box? Unless you have a more insulting junk box. 20 each. 5. Frank slapped his chest like I had stabbed him. 5? For old pieces, you called them junk with your face. A small crowd had started to form. Vendors loved watching one of their own skin. A beginner. Frank loved it more. He leaned over the table and lowered his voice just enough for everyone to hear. Kid, go buy lunch. This market is for people with money. There it was. The line every scammer used in a different coat. I put my backpack down and counted out $900 in cash. Frank's eyes stuck to the bills. I said, the whole junk box, including the compass under it. No stories, no takebacks. His greed moved faster than his suspicion. Done, Frank said. The vendor beside him laughed. You sold him the garage trash? Frank swept the money into his jacket. Garage trash with a happy ending. I reached for the bronze compass. Frank's fingers twitched toward it first. Tiny movement. Big confession. Not that one, Frank said quickly. That was under the box. The neighboring vendor laughed harder. You just said whole box. Frank shot him a look. Stay out of my sale. I kept my hand on the compass lid and asked Chance Sight one clean question. Chance Frank backs down if the crowd hears no takebacks, 79%. I lifted my voice. Frank Russo treats beginners fair, right? Whole junk box. No stories, no takebacks. You said it in front of everyone. The crowd liked that. Not because they liked me, because sellers hated being caught by their own pitch, and buyers loved seeing it happen to someone else. Frank's jaw flexed. He could fight me for the compass, but he had already pocketed my cash in public. Greed had signed the receipt before suspicion read it. He pulled his hand back. Take your trash! Happily! I lifted the bronze compass out last. The number above it changed when it touched my hand. Chance Victor Calder makes highest serious offer if item is displayed publicly, 82%. A name this time. I did not know Victor Calder, but the market did. I set the compass on Frank's table instead of packing it away. Frank frowned. What are you doing? Waiting. For what? For your happy ending to get expensive. The first offer came from a thin man with a jeweler's loop around his neck. He did not give a name. He did not need one. I'll give you 5,000 for the compass, the thin man said. Frank laughed so hard he slapped the table. Then he saw I was not laughing. I asked Chance Sight silently. Chance price exceeds 150,000 if I refuse. First 3 offers, 88%. I said, no. The thin man blinked. You paid 900 for the box. And you offered 5,000 before I cleaned it? Thank you for confessing. The crowd shifted closer. Frank's smile went crooked. Hold on, 5,000? For that? I looked at him. Garage trash, remember? Happy ending. Then Kendra Stone walked into the circle. She looked like money had gotten bored and decided to wear a sharp coat. Her eyes went straight to the compass, then to me, then to Frank's fist around my $900. 10,000, Kendra said. The thin man cursed under his breath and stepped back. Frank stopped breathing like a normal person. I smiled at Kendra. No! She tilted her head. Do you know who I am? Not yet. The day has been busy. A few people laughed. Kendra did not. 25, she said. I asked Chance Sight. Chance Kendra stops before 200,000 if Victor Calder arrives, 19%. So Victor was still the bigger fish. I said. Kendra's face sharpened. She was not used to no from a man whose jacket had a tear near the cuff. 50,000, she said. Frank made a tiny sound. It was beautiful. Then an older man at the back of the crowd spoke with a calm that made the vendor straighten. 120,000. The crowd opened for Victor Calder. He wore no flashy chain, no loud watch, no rich person costume, just a dark coat, silver hair, and eyes that made every fake object in the market look nervous. Kendra turned toward him. Victor, I saw it first. Victor Calder did not look at her. He looked at me. You bought it first? From Frank Russo, I said clearly. Every head turned to Frank. Frank's face had gone the color of old glue. Victor nodded once. Then I bid 120,000. Kendra's smile returned, but it had teeth now. 150, Victor said. 180. Kendra stepped closer to me. 200, sell it now and I'll forgive the attitude. I laughed before I could stop myself. She heard it, so did everyone else. Forgive? I said. You are bidding against an old man for something I bought out of a junk box. I think your forgiveness is already overpriced. The crowd made a low sound. Not a gasp. Better. A turn. Kendra's cheeks colored. Victor Calder's mouth twitched. Kendra said, 220. Chance final price improves if I pause, 61%. I paused. Frank whispered, Kid, sell now. I looked at him. Frank, you sold already. Try not to haunt the transaction. Victor lifted his hand, 240. Immediate transfer. The number above the compass flashed green. Chance higher price today if I refuse, 11%. Greed was useful. Stupidity was expensive. I nodded to Victor. Sold. Kendra's eyes cut into me. You will regret making me lose face in public. Victor heard that. The crowd heard that. Frank heard nothing, because Frank was staring at the compass like it had murdered his firstborn. Victor arranged the transfer with a few taps and a call to his assistant. I did not ask for a lecture. I did not ask for appraisal proof. The money hit my account in one clean alert. $240,000. Frank sat down on his own stool without looking for it first. He missed the edge and nearly slid off. The neighboring vendor laughed so hard he wheezed. Garage trash, Frank? Frank's hand shook around my $900. I want to cancel. I leaned over his table. No takebacks. You said it before the compass got rich. Frank stared at the compass like it had died rich just to spite him. Victor Calder wrapped the compass in a cloth from his pocket. Before he left, he looked at me, not the object. Young man, Victor said, people who guess like that either have training, luck, or trouble following them. Which are you? I said, recently, all three. Victor nodded like that answer cost him something to file away. Then he walked off with the compass. The market did not go back to normal. Vendors who had ignored me suddenly wanted to show me private pieces. Buyers who had laughed at my backpack now watched my eyes instead of my clothes. Frank kept opening and closing his mouth, but no money came out. Kendra waited until Victor was gone. Then she stepped in front of me, close enough that I could smell expensive perfume and bad temper. You knew, she said. I lifted my backpack. I negotiated. No, you knew before anyone else moved. I tried to step around her. She blocked me again. The crowd had thinned, but Frank was still listening. So were two vendors and the thin man with the loop. Kendra did not care. People like her did not lower their voice for people they considered furniture. Prove it, she said. Prove what? Whatever trick you used, do it on me. That was a terrible idea. Chance Kendra becomes hostile if I refuse, 92%. Chance Kendra becomes hostile if I answer, 94%. At least the second option sounded more fun. I asked a careful question. Chance Kendra Stone believes I know something impossible if I reveal one non-public detail without naming my source. The blue window folded open, 97%. Below it, a line of information sharpened like a blade. Birth time, gate accident, family cover story. My mouth went dry. Kendra saw my expression change. For the first time all day, she stopped looking angry and started looking afraid. Well, she said. I looked at the woman who had tried to buy my win, then my silence, then my obedience. Chance Sight gave me the knife. I had to decide how deep to cut. Kendra Stone wanted proof, so I gave her just enough to make her hate me. I did not say the whole thing in front of the market. I was greedy, not suicidal. I stepped close enough that Frank Russo and the other vendors could not hear every word. Then I kept my voice low. 2:17 in the morning, I said. That is when you were born. And the south gate at your family's property did not crack in a storm. A car hit it. Someone important was in that car, and your family paid to make the story boring. Kendra's face lost its color one layer at a time. She whispered, Who told you that? You asked for proof. Who told you? Her voice cut sharp enough that Frank finally shut up. I stepped back. If I answer that, you will only hate the answer too. Kendra pulled out her phone with fingers that were steadier than her face. She turned away and made a call. I could not hear everything, but I heard two phrases. 2:17, then, quieter, the gate. When she turned back, her eyes had changed. The rich bully amusement was gone. What replaced it was worse, curiosity with a grudge attached. You stalked me, Kendra said. I met you 20 minutes ago. Your personality made it feel longer. Frank made a strangled sound that might have been fear or joy. Kendra stepped closer. You are going to tell me how you did that. Then she did what rich people did when fear embarrassed them. She tried to buy the problem. 50,000, Kendra said, low and fast. Tell me who gave you that information, and I forget the market insult. Chance accepting Kendra's money makes her leave today, 38%. Chance accepting Kendra's money makes her think she owns me, 99%. I had been owned by rent, clients, locks, and late fees. I was not adding perfume to the list. Keep it, I said. You need comfort money more than I do. Kendra's smile twitched like I had put a crack in it. Chance Kendra leaves me alone if I apologize, 6%. Chance Kendra escalates if mocked, 98%. I was already in trouble. I chose flavor. Sure, I said. First, be less predictable. Kendra smiled slowly, but it was not a smile anymore. Enjoy your little market victory, Evan Rowe. People who embarrass me usually get invited somewhere nicer before they regret it. That sounded like a threat wearing perfume. She walked away. Frank leaned over his table and hissed, Kid, what the hell did you say to her? A birthday greeting. She looked like she wanted to buy your skeleton. Then you should have sold it to her yesterday. You sell everything else too cheap. Frank clutched his chest. Too soon. He meant the compass. Good. I wanted the wound fresh. I left the market before Frank could decide grief was a business strategy and before Kendra could send anyone back with a cleaner threat. The 240,000 in my account made my phone feel heavier than my backpack. I should have gone straight to a bank, a motel, maybe a locksmith with an attitude problem. Instead, hunger dragged me into a small restaurant with cracked vinyl booths and fast service. Rich people forgot to eat when angry. Poor people did not. I had just ordered when a woman slid into the booth beside me and kissed me like she was trying to win a bet. I froze with a fork in my hand. Across the table, a man in a pressed shirt stood halfway up, his face twisting in slow public defeat. The woman broke the kiss and whispered against my cheek, Play along for 30 seconds and I will owe you. Chance woman is using me as social shield, 100%. Chance refusing causes immediate scene, 89%. Chance playing along creates future useful complication, 76%. Useful complication was the ugliest phrase I had ever willingly accepted. I put my arm around her shoulders and looked at the man across the table. You were saying? The woman's eyes flicked with relief. This is Evan, she said clearly, loud enough for the nearby booths. My boyfriend. The man stared at me. Nina, this is pathetic. So her name was Nina Price. Nina smiled at him with bright cruelty. No, begging after I said no was pathetic. This is efficient. The man pointed at me. You just grabbed the first guy eating fries. I looked down at my plate. They are good fries, shows judgment. Two girls at the next booth laughed. The man's ears went red. He reached across the table and grabbed Nina's wrist. Stop performing, we are leaving. Nina's smile disappeared. Chance, he lets go if I ask politely. 22%. Chance he lets go if the room laughs at him. 81%. I stood halfway, just enough to make the booth scrape loud. Take your hand off my girlfriend before I start believing my own lie. The two girls at the next booth laughed again. Someone near the counter said, Man, let her eat. The rejected man released Nina like the whole restaurant had burned him. His face went red enough to warm the fries. Then Nina's parents arrived. Of course they did. Her mother saw my arm around Nina and clapped once like a trap had finally closed. Her father looked me up and down with the calm suspicion of a man pricing repairs. Nina whispered, I can explain. I whispered back, you had 30 seconds. You used them on kissing. Her mother slid into the booth opposite us. So this is the boyfriend. The rejected man looked betrayed by the entire building. There is no boyfriend. She just met him. Nina's father sat beside her mother. He looked at the rejected man first. If she had to invent one to escape dinner with you, that answers my question. The restaurant enjoyed that. The rejected man grabbed his jacket and left with the stiff walk of a person trying not to run. Nina exhaled. I started to move my arm back. Her mother noticed. Evan, was it? How serious are you about our daughter? I stared at Nina. Nina stared at her water. Chance truthful answer ends scene cleanly, 18%. Chance shameless answer gets me out faster, 64%. I said, serious enough not to discuss her future over fries. Nina's father surprised me by smiling. Good answer. Bad jacket. Recent landlord trouble. The jacket survived, the lease didn't. Nina's mother leaned forward. You need a place? Nina kicked my ankle under the table. I smiled through the pain. I need several places. We are still negotiating which one I deserve. Her mother beamed like she had just adopted a project. Come to dinner tonight, Nina said. Mom. Her mother ignored her. Real dinner, not fries, Nina's father added. And bring proof of income. I like romance, but I like numbers better. For one ridiculous second, I thought of opening my banking app and letting the $240,000 do the talking. Then Chance sight flashed above Nina's face. Chance. Nina Price becomes a useful social shield if the fake relationship remains unresolved, 82%. Chance Nina Price becomes dangerous if trapped by parents tonight, 79%. Useful. Dangerous. The women entering my life had the personality of scratch cards with knives under the coating. I stood up and took my backpack. I have business before dinner. Nina shot up beside me. I will walk him out. Her mother smiled like she had already ordered wedding flowers. Her father pointed 2 fingers at me. Income, he said. Personality first, I said. Disappoint him in order. Nina dragged me out by the sleeve. On the sidewalk, she released me so fast she almost threw me into a trash can. I am sorry, she said. My ex would not stop, my parents were ambushing me, and you looked available. That is the most insulting rescue request I have ever received. You played along. I was under mouth attack. Consent got blurry. For the first time, Nina looked genuinely embarrassed. Then her eyes dropped to my torn cuff. Do you really need a place? Today, apparently, everyone wants to discuss my housing. My parents mean well, they also ruin everything they touch for sport. Rich hobby? Family hobby. The line should have ended there. Clean, funny, safe. Then Brooke Calder stepped out from beside the bus shelter and grabbed my wrist. She was taller than Nina, sharper than Nina, and her county police badge caught the sunlight before I processed the grip. Evan Rowe, Brooke said, you are coming with me. Nina stepped back. Excuse me? Brooke did not look at her. This does not concern you. I looked at the badge, then at the hand twisting my wrist. Officer Calder, I usually get dinner before handcuffs. Her eyes narrowed. You know my name. Your grandfather bought my compass. Victor Calder looks like a man whose relatives also interrogate furniture. That earned me a harder twist. Chance Brooke Calder breaks my wrist by accident if I keep joking. 31%, that was higher than I liked. Brooke pushed me against the side of the bus shelter. Nina gasped, but Brooke finally looked at her. I need to ask him how he conned my grandfather, Brooke said. Nina crossed her arms. By kissing me? Because I saw that part and it was mostly my fault. Brooke's grip tightened. Stay out of it. A city bus groaned up to the curb behind her. The door folded open. People shifted toward it. A little boy with a school backpack hopped up the first step while his mother searched for a pass. An older man lifted a grocery bag after him. Normal people, normal afternoon. The kind of scene you never watched closely until a number told you how fast it could turn into smoke. I was about to say something stupid when chance sight tore open across my vision. Chance of fire-related mass injury if man with black backpack boards, bus 94%. The number hovered over a thin man in a gray hoodie stepping toward the bus door. Black backpack, one hand in his pocket, too still, too focused on the open door. My mouth went dry. I asked the next question without moving my lips. Chance Brooks stops him if I point calmly, 42%. Chance Brooks stops him if I create immediate physical disruption, 81%. Great, Chance Sight wanted me to be an idiot in public, Brooks said. Answer me, how did you know the compass was valuable? The man with the backpack lifted one foot onto the bus. I could have run. That was the honest part I hated. The sidewalk behind me was open, and Chance Sight showed a clean 72% chance that I personally avoided injury if I backed away and let the officer handle her own bus stop. Then the little boy turned around on the first step to ask his mother something. The clean number became filth. I raised my voice. Because I can smell fraud, Officer Calder. Speaking of smell, maybe check the guy carrying gasoline onto your bus. Everyone heard it. The man froze. Brooks' head snapped toward him, but suspicion fought training for half a second. Half a second was too long. The man shoved forward. I hooked my foot around the dragging strap of Nina's purse on the ground. The purse jumped. Nina yelped. Brooke turned back toward me by instinct, thinking I had moved on her. I ducked under Brooke's arm and slammed my shoulder into the bus door frame, blocking the man's path without touching him first. He cursed and shoved me. Brooke lunged, not at him, at me. I dropped. Her hand caught the black backpack strap instead of my collar. The man twisted away. The zipper ripped open. A plastic bottle hit the bus step. Clear liquid splashed out, and the gasoline stink punched through the street. Someone screamed. A lighter bounced near the driver's shoe. Brooke moved like a snapped cable. She drove the man's wrist into the bus rail, kicked his knee, and put him face down on the curb before I finished standing. Nina grabbed the lighter and kicked it away from the spill. The bus driver shouted for everyone to get back. The mother on the bus step pulled her son against her chest so hard he dropped one shoe. The older man with groceries backed down with both hands raised. The passengers did not gasp for decoration. They moved, and that movement opened the space Brooke needed to keep the arsonist pinned. The crowd finally understood what had almost happened. Brooke cuffed the man with one knee on his spine. Her voice was cold and professional when she told the driver to shut the bus down and move the passengers away. Then she looked at me. The anger was still there. Now fear sat under it. How did you know? Brooke asked. I rubbed my shoulder. He smelled like gasoline. Brooke's eyes flicked to the bottle, then to the crowd, then back to me. I did not smell it until the bag opened. Maybe your grandfather bought the wrong compass. Bad line. Her face changed. Brooke grabbed the front of my jacket and shoved me back against the shelter. Chance Brooke arrests me if I keep antagonizing her, 67%. Chance truthful explanation protects Chance Sight, 0%. I was deciding which lie would irritate her least when Nina stepped between us. Nina's voice was bright, sharp, and loud enough for the passengers to hear. Officer, get your hands off my boyfriend. Brooke froze. Nina hooked her arm through mine like she had legal title to my elbow. He just helped you stop a psycho with gasoline, and now you're pinning him in public? Is this policing or flirting? The crowd turned fast. A woman near the curb said, He did block the guy. The bus driver pointed at me. He kept him off my bus. Brooke let go of my jacket like it had burned her. That was the second time that day a woman had saved me by making my life worse. Brooke looked from Nina's arm to my face. Boyfriend? Nina smiled. Unfortunately. I said, recent development. Strongly disputed by management. Nina pinched my side without changing her smile. Brooke's gaze dropped to Nina's hand on my arm. It was not jealousy yet. It was worse for me. Calculation. If Nina was real, Brooke had a witness problem. If Nina was fake, Brooke had a lie to pull apart later. How long? Brooke asked. Nina answered before I could ruin it. Long enough that his bad jokes are my problem. Condolences, Brooke said. Accepted, Nina said. The crowd chuckled, and that tiny sound took Brooke's immediate control of the scene away. She could still question me. She could still follow me. But she could not drag me off like a nobody after half the bus stop had just heard another woman claim me. Brooke lowered her voice so only we could hear. You are hiding something, Evan Rowe. I do not know what it is yet. But if you keep predicting danger in my county, I will find out. Your county, my jurisdiction, my family, my problem, pick whichever scares you. Then she stepped away to handle the arrest. Nina released my arm and whispered, You attract terrifying women. I looked at her. You kissed a stranger to weaponize him against your ex. You are not the safe category. She accepted that with a tiny nod. Fair. Before I could escape both of them, a black car pulled to the curb. A driver got out, glanced at the police lights, and walked straight to me with a white envelope in his hand. The envelope had a gold seal and my name written across the front. Evan Rowe. No nickname, no mistake. The driver said, "From Kendra Stone. She said you would understand this is an apology." Then he added, with the dead voice of a man paid not to enjoy his errands, "She also said the dress code is formal, so try not to embarrass yourself before she gets the chance." Nina looked at the envelope. "That does not look like an apology." Brooke, 10 feet away with the arrested man, heard Kendra's name and looked over. "Kendra Stone apologizes with witnesses," Brooke said, "usually because she wants witnesses for the next part." Nina glanced at Brooke. "You know her?" "I know the type," Brooke said. "That was useful. Not friendly, not safe, useful." The police officer, the fake girlfriend, and the rich rival all stood inside the same 10 feet of sidewalk, and every one of them had a different reason to watch me bleed or bluff. I broke the seal. Inside was an invitation to the Harbor Charity Gala, a rich room, a public stage, Kendra's smile hiding somewhere behind it. Chance accepting invitation creates major status opportunity, 88%. Chance accepting invitation walks into Kendra Stone's trap, 93%. I laughed once. Nina frowned. "What is funny?" I looked at the gold seal, then at Brooke watching me like a case file with legs. "Nothing," I said. "It is just the first apology I have ever seen with teeth." The invitation did not feel like paper. It felt like Kendra Stone had mailed me a smile with a blade behind it. The gold seal sat on the sidewalk in my hand, while Brooke Calder handled the arrested arsonist 10 feet away, and Nina Price kept pretending my elbow belonged to her. The formal card said, Harbor Charity Gala. The numbers above it said something less polite. Chance accepting creates major status opportunity, 88%. Chance accepting walks into Kendra Stone's trap, 93%. I looked at both numbers and laughed. Nina leaned closer. "That is not the laugh of a stable man." "Good," I said. "Stable men pay rent. I am trying to buy doors." Brooke heard that from beside the police car. She looked from the envelope to my face. "Kendra does not apologize unless she already picked the room where you lose. Then I should see the room." Brooke's jaw tightened. "You just helped stop a bus fire, and your next move is charity theater?" "My next move is whatever gets me closer to never begging a landlord again." Nina's hand tightened on my arm. That was the first useful thing she did after the fake boyfriend lie. She did not tell me to be safe. Maybe safe was simply for people with keys. She said, "If you go, do not go poor." That sounded obvious. It was not. Poor was not just money. Poor was posture. Poor was letting rich people choose the joke before you entered the room. So, the next morning, before the gala, I went back to Harbor City Antique Market. I still had no permanent address, no clean history, and no idea what Kendra had prepared. What I did have was cash, a rude power, and a market full of people who now watched my fingers like weather. Frank Russo saw me coming and immediately turned around like a man trying to outrun yesterday. "Frank," I called. He grabbed a cracked lamp from his table and pretended to study it. "Nope, you do not even know what I want. You want to hurt me with math again. That was one time." Frank spun around. "You made me sell a $240,000 compass for $900. You sold it. I just gave the compass a better childhood." The vendor beside him laughed. Frank pointed at him without looking. "You laugh because you have no soul and worse inventory." That was the market's love language. I had come for an item with enough auction value to survive Kendra's room. Chance sight floated above tables in little blue judgments. Most of them were dead. The market had learned my face though. Vendors straightened when I looked. Buyers watched my hands. One morning and one public sale had changed me from broke novice to walking price alarm. Then I saw Brooke Calder. She stood 3 stalls down in plain clothes, staring at a stack of porcelain pieces on a folding table. Her expression was too still, not police, still, family still. A market seller held up a rectangular porcelain plaque with a pale blue edge. Old decorative panel, pretty but chipped, 2,000. Frank's grief turned into hunger. He drifted toward it. Brooke reached for her phone. Chance plaque belongs to missing Calder family set, 96%. Chance Victor Calder pays 7 figures if recovered, before Kendra sees it, 91%. Chance Brooke lets me profit quietly if I ask permission first, 3%. That last number hurt my feelings and saved my time. I stepped between Frank and the table. "How much for the whole porcelain stack?" The seller blinked. "Whole stack?" Brooke's head snapped toward me. "Evan!" Frank's mouth opened. "Kid, get away from my grief recovery." I put my hand on the porcelain plaque. "Whole stack, no stories, no takebacks." The seller looked from me to Brooke to Frank. He looked like he did not know why the air had changed, but the raised price came anyway. 20,000. 10, I said. 18. 12, and I remove it before the police officer standing behind me decides this table has paperwork energy. The seller's face twitched. Brooke said, I am off duty, your face is not. The seller took 12,000 so fast I respected him. Frank clutched his chest. I hate when you buy fast. Fast means expensive later. Brooke stepped close enough that the market quieted around us. That piece belongs to my grandfather's missing set. Belonged, I said. Past tense is how markets eat families. Her eyes narrowed. Do not play cute with my family. Then call Victor Calder and tell him I am standing here with a very ugly moral discount. Brooke looked like she wanted to arrest my personality. She called Victor. I heard only her side. Grandfather, Harbor City Antique Market, missing Blue Edge plaque. Yes, Evan Rowe bought it first. Her eyes cut to me on that last line. Good. Let Victor know I was greedy. If he wanted saints, he would not shop in antique markets. The call lasted 20 seconds. Brooke lowered the phone and said, he is sending payment authority. Authority sounds boring. How much? 1.1 million. Frank sat down on a crate. The seller who had taken my 12,000 made a noise like his soul had tried to leave through his nose. Brooke's glare could have cracked the plaque. You bought my family's piece for 12,000 and are selling it back for 1.1 million. I am returning family history with same-day service. You are robbing us. No, I said. The market was robbing you slowly. I interrupted and charged extra. Her anger did not leave, but something else entered beside it. A reluctant, violent kind of respect. She hated that I had saved the piece. She hated more that I had profited from saving it. My phone buzzed. $1.1 million. Yesterday, 240,000 had felt like a building falling into my account. This felt like the ground deciding I was allowed to stand on it. Frank whispered, I need a new religion. Try retail honesty, I said. Do not mock a grieving man. The market changed again. People who had watched me sell one compass could call it luck. People who watched me turn a chipped porcelain stack into 7 figures had to call it something worse. Kendra Stone walked in right on time to hate it. She wore a cream coat, dark glasses, and the expression of a woman treating humiliation like a temporary accounting problem. Her eyes found the porcelain stack, then Brooke, then my phone. Evan Rowe, Kendra said. I thought you would be shopping for a suit. I was, I said. Then your future apology budget appeared. Brooke looked at Kendra. Do not start. Kendra smiled at Brooke like they had known each other long enough to dislike the same rooms. Officer Calder, I did not realize he had already expanded into family recovery. Neither did he, Brooke said. I am adaptive, I said. Kendra took off her glasses and handed them to a silent assistant near the walkway. The assistant was only a roll with shoes, so I did not waste a name on him. Kendra looked around the market. Whatever Evan Rowe touches today, I will buy for double. Every vendor within 20 feet became religious. Frank stood so fast the crate tipped behind him. Double? I looked at Kendra. You are copying my homework after I already turned it in. No, she said. I am teaching you what money does when it stops being polite. Chance Kendra outbids genuine targets if I show real interest, 94%. Chance Kendra follows gestures instead of value, 87%. Chance vendors pay me referral cuts if I make Kendra spend, 76%. I turned to the nearest vendor and lifted a cracked silver mirror with a dead 0% over it. Interesting, I said. Kendra pointed. Mine. The vendor's eyes almost popped. This mirror is 1,200. Double, Kendra said. I put the mirror down and picked up a fake jade bowl with a 1% chance of surviving soap. Shame. Mine, Kendra said again. Frank stared at me. I mouthed, watch. For the next 12 minutes, I walked the market like a starving man at a buffet where every dish was poison and someone else insisted on eating first. I touched bad lamps, dead coins, fake bowls, repaired frames, chipped brass animals, and one painting so ugly Chancite refused to give it a number until I asked if fire would improve it. Kendra bought everything, not because she seemed to want it, because she seemed desperate for the market to see her take choices away from me. The vendors saw something else. They saw Kendra Stone pay rich person revenge prices for inventory that had not moved in months. One by one, they started slipping me quiet nods, a folded stack of bills under a receipt. Thank you, discount on an object I did not buy. A whispered, point at the blue vase next. Kendra's smile held until Frank ruined it. Frank leaned over his table and said, too loudly, Kid, if you can make her buy my broken umbrella stand, I will forgive the compass. Kendra froze. The market froze with her. I slowly picked up the umbrella stand. It was not an umbrella stand, it was a metal tube with delusions. Kendra's eyes moved from it to my face. For the first time that morning, she asked herself the right question too late. No, she said. Frank's face fell. Come on, be less emotionally healthy. The crowd laughed. Not huge, not fake. Enough. Kendra had spent thousands to control my hands, and the market had figured out the trick before she did. Her money had turned into my comedy routine. I set the umbrella stand down. Congratulations, Kendra, you bought everything I did not want. Her assistant stood behind her with bags in both hands and misery in both eyes. Kendra looked at the vendors, then at Brooke, then back to me. The rage did not explode, it sharpened. Enjoy the market, she said. Tonight you get a real audience. Her game changed right there. She stopped trying to beat me at tables I could choose. The next stage would be one she controlled. The Harbor Charity Gala was held in a hotel ballroom with chandeliers, security at every door, and enough perfume to kill a small plant. I arrived in a black suit I had bought 2 hours earlier with money Kendra had accidentally helped me make. It fit well enough to annoy her. At the entrance, an auction staffer gave me a donor paddle and said, "Guest contributions are checked backstage." I handed over the small brass lock plate I had bought at the market for $40. The staffer looked at it. "This is your contribution? It has personality." It also had a 71% chance of becoming useful on stage, which was the only personality I cared about. I saw Kendra across the ballroom. She lifted her glass toward me. "Chance Kendra has altered my auction lot, 100%. I almost admired the honesty of that number. Nina texted me before the first charity speech ended. "Are you alive or rich dead?" I typed back. "Alive." "Rich people clap strangely," she replied. "Do not let Kendra make you look single and poor. One lie at a time." I put my phone away and found Brooke near the sidewall. She wore a dark dress instead of a badge, which somehow made her look more dangerous. "Victor invited me," Brooke said before I asked. "I was going to say you clean up threateningly. You are about to get embarrassed." Everyone kept promising me that. The customer service is amazing. The auctioneer took the stage. He was the only new person in the room who mattered, and even he mattered only because he had a microphone. Several lots sold quickly. A watch, a signed guitar, a painting that looked expensive because nobody in the room wanted to admit it looked sad. Then the auctioneer smiled down at his card. "Our next contribution comes from Mr. Evan Rowe." The room turned. Kendra's smile appeared over the rim of her glass. 2 staffers carried out a small velvet tray. My brass lock plate was gone. On the tray sat a cheap plastic key tag shaped like a little house, the kind hardware stores kept near the register for people who wanted their keys to look cheerful while their lives did not. Someone in the back laughed before they could stop themselves. The auctioneer hesitated. "The card says, 'First home, donated by Evan Rowe.'" Kendra's smile widened. The room understood the joke fast. The market, nobody, the rent rumor, the man who had just made money too quickly and still did not belong. Kendra had turned my lockout into party entertainment. Chance leaving stage preserves dignity, 12%. Chance taking the microphone and telling the truth creates a winning bid, 83%. Chance I sound pathetic if I talk too long, 91%. So I kept it short. I walked onto the stage before the auctioneer could bury me politely. "I can explain the key." The auctioneer looked relieved to hand me the microphone. I held up the cheap plastic house key tag. "Yesterday morning, I was locked out of my apartment for missing rent." The room quieted. Kendra's smile flickered. Her face had been ready for laughter, not attention. "The first thing I learned after that," I said, "was simple. If someone changes the lock on you, do not spend your life begging for the old door." I turned the tag in my fingers. "This is not an antique. It is not rare. It is not tasteful. It is a cheap little house key tag from a woman who thought poverty was a punchline. Tonight, I am selling the punchline." A few people laughed. This time, they laughed with me. I pointed at the donor paddles. "Bid on it for the housing fund. Make it expensive enough that nobody in this room can pretend the joke landed for free." Brooke's eyes narrowed like she hated how well it was working. The auctioneer recovered first. "Opening bid, 5,000? A paddle rose in the front row. Then another. Kendra lowered her glass. 10,000 became 20. 20 became 50. The donor in the front row, an older woman with a voice like she had never been refused a table, lifted her paddle and said, 100,000. The room clapped. I said into the microphone, "I'll match 10%. The donor looked up at me. "Can you afford that, today?" I said. "Yes." "Yesterday, no. That is why I like today." The room laughed louder. The donor smiled and raised her paddle again. 120! Sold! The auctioneer struck the gavel, and the cheap plastic key tag became the most expensive insult Kendra Stone had ever handed me. Kendra had tried to sell my humiliation. I made someone else pay for it. The applause did not make me noble. It made me harder to dismiss. When I stepped off stage, Brooke blocked me near the side curtain. "That was disgusting," she said. "The good kind? The effective kind." My phone buzzed again. Nina had seen a photo already. "Did you just auction fake homelessness jewelry?" I typed back. "Real homelessness, fake jewelry," she replied. "I hate that this is attractive. That was a problem for later and possibly for several therapists. Backstage, the staffer returned my original brass lock plate in a clear bag. Someone switched the tray. We found this under a prop table. The lock plate had picked up a smear of black dust from whatever had been packed with it. Under the brass edge, a tiny kiln-shaped stamp had been pressed into the metal, crude and dark. Chance stamp connects to forged auction inventory, 79%. I did not know the mark yet, but I knew Kendra had not created it with party planning. Across the room, Kendra watched me notice the stamp. Her expression did not say guilt. It said annoyance that the joke had left fingerprints. Before I could decide whether to confront her, Frank Russo called me. I answered. If this is about the umbrella stand, grieve privately. Frank's voice came low and excited. Kid, big score, real big, old saber, seller wants 80,000. I can flip it before midnight. My stomach tightened. Send a photo, I said. The image landed on my phone, a short old saber, red jewel near the hilt, dark fittings, dramatic enough to seduce exactly the kind of man who had sold me a compass for 900. Chance Frank profits from buying this saber, 0%. Then the angle changed as Frank's thumb moved in the photo, and I saw the same crude kiln-shaped stamp hiding under the jewel. Frank said, I'm reaching for the cash now. Do not touch your wallet, I said. On the other end, Frank laughed. Relax, I learned from last time. No, he had not. The fake saber's success rate dropped to 0, while Frank Russo reached for his wallet anyway. Frank Russo reached for his wallet like $80,000 was trying to escape without supervision. I ran out of the Harbor Charity Gala with a donor paddle still in my jacket pocket and called him again. Frank, I said, if your hand touches cash before I get there, I will tell every vendor at Harbor City Antique Market you need a financial babysitter. He whispered away from the phone. Give me 5 minutes. Give me your location. Market lot. West Side. Do not say West Side like you are in a crime movie. Say who was with you. Frank hesitated. That hesitation told me enough. 2 guys, he said. One has the saber. One has the face of a dentist who sells fake watches. Perfect. Do not buy medical jewelry. Kid, it looks real. So did your confidence. I heard him curse before the call cut. Chance Frank buys before I arrive, 64%. Chance yelling delays him, 32%. Chance insulting his pride delays him, 81%. I called back and said the cruelest useful thing I could. Frank, if this goes bad, the market will say you sold me the compass, watched me make millions, then bought the first shiny knife that winked at you. Silence. Then Frank said, I hate you. Good. Hate is cheaper than 80,000. He stayed on the phone until I reached the market lot. The gala lights were still behind me when I saw him under a flickering parking lamp. Frank stood beside 2 sellers in a folding case. The saber lay on dark cloth, red jewel near the hilt, metal polished just enough to flatter a desperate buyer. The taller seller looked me up and down. This your accountant? Worse, Frank said. My curse. I stepped closer. Chance saber is genuine, 0%. Chance visible proof appears if red jewel is not loose, 92%. Chance sellers become violent if cornered privately, 58%. Chance sellers run if embarrassed publicly, 74%. The market lot was not crowded, but a few vendors were loading trucks nearby. Public enough, not safe, but useful. I lifted my voice. 80,000 for this? The shorter seller snapped the case halfway shut. If you do not know what you are looking at, step back. Frank flinched. The line hit because it sounded too much like what he used to say. The taller seller smiled at him. Your friend is nervous because he missed his chance. No, I said. I am nervous because Frank learned slowly and you two look like homework. The vendors by the trucks turned their heads. Good. The shorter seller's face tightened. This is a private sale. Then stop performing it under a parking lamp, Frank whispered. Kid, I pointed at the red jewel near the saber's hilt. That stone is hiding the part you do not want him to see. The taller seller laughed. You want to break a piece you cannot afford? I will bet 10 times your asking price. Frank made a noise. The seller stopped smiling. I took 1 step closer. If the saber is real after I touch it, I pay 800,000 and Frank apologizes for knowing me. If it is fake, you hand him back his deposit and leave before the market decides you are today's entertainment. Frank whispered. Deposit? I looked at him. He looked away. Frank. Only 5,000. That is how gamblers say sorry. The taller seller held the saber case closer. No one touches it. Then no one buys it, I said. Frank, walk. That did it. The shorter seller grabbed the saber, thrust it toward me and said, Fine, touch it. When you are wrong, you pay. I did not take the blade. I took one of Frank's cheap display coins from his pocket and flicked it against the red jewel. The jewel popped loose. It hit the pavement, bounced once, and rolled under Frank's shoe. Under the empty setting, a tiny black kiln-shaped mark sat stamped into the metal. Fresh, modern, ugly as a confession. One of the loading vendors said, Black kiln. The words landed harder than the jewel. I did not know the Black Kiln Syndicate yet, not really. But the market knew the name the way people knew smoke meant fire. The taller seller grabbed the case. Frank stepped on the loose jewel and said, "My deposit." For once he sounded dangerous. The shorter seller threw an envelope at him. "Keep it." Then both sellers ran. Frank looked ready to chase them until the loading vendors started laughing. The fake saber stayed on the pavement with its jewel missing, suddenly less like a treasure and more like a bad magic trick after the mirror falls off. That mattered. Everyone nearby could see the mark. Nobody needed a report to know the sale had died. Frank's almost score had turned into public evidence with one ugly tap. "Do not," I said. "They tried to rob me. You tried to volunteer." Frank pointed at the fake saber. "I was negotiating. You were bleeding from the wallet." The loading vendors laughed harder. Frank's ears turned red, but he did not yell at them. He picked up the envelope and counted his deposit like a man checking whether his dignity had interest. "You saved me," he muttered. "Say it louder." "Absolutely not." "Then pay me." Frank glared. "I almost like you less than the forgers. That is partnership material. We are not partners." "No. Partners split profit. You still sell treasure to strangers for lunch money." That hit the bruise under the compass wound. Frank looked at the fake saber, then at the vendors who had watched him nearly step on a second landmine. His pride sagged. Then, because Frank Russo could not experience shame without trying to monetize it, he pointed toward his van. "I got something else. If it has a jewel, I am hitting you with it." No jewel. Old double sword? Heavy. Ugly. Came in a storage lot. I was going to use it to scare bad customers. Chance old double sword is genuine, 97%. Chance Victor Calder pays millions for it today, 89%. I looked at Frank with the calm face of a man trying not to smile at a funeral. "Ugly, you said." Frank's eyes narrowed. "Why did your voice change?" "Because I am emotionally invested in your bad taste." He opened the van and dragged out a long, wrapped shape. When he pulled the cloth back, the double sword looked duller than the fake saber and twice as tired. Two blades folded into one old scabbard. Dark metal, plain grip. No red jewel, no drama. Frank watched my face like a dog watching a sandwich. I let disappointment show. Chance Frank guards the sword if I look excited, 99%. Chance Frank gives it up if I make it sound embarrassing, 73%. I sighed. "Frank, this is exactly your brand." "Meaning?" "Loud fake saber almost eats your deposit. Quiet, real-looking object sits in your van while you chase shiny bait. It is poetic, and I hate poetry." "Real-looking? Maybe, maybe not. I will take it off your hands before you use it as a parking cone." Frank clutched the cloth. "No. If your eyes got weird, I am keeping it." "Good, keep it. Then tomorrow you can sell it to someone for 200 and tell yourself you won." He flinched. I started walking. "Wait," Frank said. I kept walking. "Kid!" I waved without turning. "Enjoy your heavy umbrella, 5,000, he shouted. I stopped. "Chance, Frank accepts 5,000 and regrets it within 1 hour, 86%. That number was almost rude. I turned back. "Done." Frank's face collapsed. "Too fast. No takebacks. I hate that sentence when you say it." I transferred 5,000. He handed me the wrapped double sword with the care of a man passing over a sleeping snake. "If this is worth more than my van," Frank said, "do not tell me." "Frank, your van is worth less than some sandwiches." "That is not the point." I should have gone to sleep. I had been locked out, kissed by a fake girlfriend, interrogated by Brooke, invited into Kendra's trap, profited from Calder porcelain, auctioned a plastic key tag, and stopped Frank from buying a Black Kiln fake. Instead, I called Victor Calder. He answered on the second ring. "Evan Rowe," Victor said. "It is late. I have a double sword." The line went quiet. "Describe it." "Plain grip. Twin blade housing, duller than it should be. Makes Frank Russo look sad." Victor said, "Bring it to Calder Gallery and Vault." Frank heard the name from 2 feet away and nearly swallowed his own tongue. "Calder? You told me not to say if it was worth more than your van," I said. He followed me anyway. Calder Gallery and Vault did not look like a place people entered by accident. The front gallery had white walls, soft lights, and staff who could probably detect cheap shoes through concrete. The vault door behind the private hall looked less like a door and more like a final answer. Victor met us in a charcoal coat, no smile, no performance. Brooke was there too, arms crossed, still wearing the look of a woman forced to watch me profit from her family twice. Frank whispered, "Why is the officer here?" "Because my life has themes," I said. Victor held out both hands. "The sword." I gave it to him. He did not gasp. Old men like Victor did not gasp. They went quieter, which was worse for everyone else. He unwrapped the double sword under a table light. He checked one seam, one notch, and the balance between the twin blades. That was all. Frank leaned forward. "Well," Victor looked at me. "Where did you get it?" I pointed at Frank. "His van, emotionally, a landfill," Frank whispered. Please stop helping. Victor looked at Frank. You sold this to him? Frank's lips pressed together. Temporarily. No, I said. Permanently. 5,000. No takebacks. Brooke closed her eyes like that phrase caused her family pain. Victor set the sword down. I will pay 3.8 million. Frank grabbed the edge of the table. The room did not need a crowd. Frank's face did all the public work by itself. 3.8, Frank said slowly. Million? Victor looked at him. Dollars. I knew the unit, Frank snapped, then sat down without being invited. Then he stood back up. Hold on, Frank said. I was under emotional distress during that sale. I looked at him. You were under greed. Same organ. Brooke's stare moved between us. You bought it from him for 5,000? He named the price, I said. Frank pointed at me. He manipulated my pain. Your pain had a cash app. Victor watched the exchange without interrupting. That was worse than judgment. His silence felt like a measurement neither of us wanted. Frank turned to Victor. Mr. Calder, as the original owner, I should receive a seller's correction fee. Victor asked. Did you sell it? Frank's mouth tightened. Legally, yes. Then no. That single word took the air out of him. I almost felt bad. Almost. Frank had tried to skin me at his stall, sell me junk, keep the compass after taking my cash, and then buy a fake saber after I told him not to. He was not innocent. He was useful, funny, greedy, and possibly trainable. Those were not moral qualities. They were market assets. I looked at Frank. You want a correction fee? Earn one. Stop chasing shiny fraud, stop selling me treasures by accident, and answer your phone when I call. Frank's eyes narrowed. That sounds like employment. That sounds like not dying poor with a van full of mistakes. Brooke said. That is your motivational speech? I am new to management. Frank should have stormed out. Instead, he looked at the double sword, then at the fake saber case he had carried in by mistake, then at me. If I work with you, he said, I do not fetch coffee. Good. I do not trust her coffee judgment. Victor finally spoke. Do not confuse a profitable accident with partnership. Frank deflated again. But I heard the shift. Victor was not warning Frank, he was warning me. I had just turned a scammer's junk into a multi-million-dollar sale. If I wanted to keep climbing, I could not drag every loud man with a van into the vault and call him an ally. I nodded once. Then consider him a pending liability. Frank threw both hands up. I am standing right here. That is why you are pending. My phone buzzed after Victor's assistant completed the transfer. $3.8 million landed under my name like the universe had stopped charging by the hour and started paying damages. Frank stared at the sword. I said, your van remains safe from comparison. He put both hands over his face. Victor did not laugh. He studied me instead. Money buys objects, Victor said. It does not buy my confidence. For 3.8 million, I can rent emotional distance, Brooke muttered. That is not how respect works. I was priced out of respect yesterday. Victor's eyes sharpened. Then earn some tonight. He led us deeper into the vault. I expected a museum lecture. I got a trap with better lighting. Victor stopped in front of 3 display cases. One held a bronze plate. One held a porcelain bowl. One was empty. Tell me which piece is lying, Victor said. Frank whispered, the empty one is cheating. Quiet, Brooke said. Chance bronze plate is misattributed 82%. Chance porcelain bowl is repaired but valuable 94%. Chance empty case is Victor's real test 100%. The numbers were useful. The question was dangerous. Victor did not want a price list. He wanted to see if I would show off until I hung myself. I pointed at the bronze plate first. Wrong label. Right age, wrong story. Victor did not move. I pointed at the bowl. Repaired. Still worth keeping. Anyone who calls it ruined is trying to buy it cheap. Frank looked personally attacked. Then I pointed at the empty case. That is the lie. Brooke frowned. There is nothing in it. Exactly, I said. He did not bring me here to test whether I can read tags. He brought me here to see if I would pretend the empty case had a secret. Victor's mouth moved by 0.5 millimeter. On him, that was applause. Why stop at 3, he asked. Because if I keep performing, I start sounding desperate. Desperate men are easy to buy. Victor looked at Brooke. Brooke looked annoyed, which meant I had accidentally helped myself. Victor reached into his coat and handed me a black card with Calder Gallery and Vault embossed in silver. No title, no speech, just a card heavy enough to feel like access. This gets you through my front door, he said. Not my trust. Progress, I said. Do not celebrate yet. The vault staff rolled in a tall sealed crate. The air around Victor changed, so did Brooke's face. Frank, who knew nothing about restraint, leaned toward me and whispered, that crate feels expensive. The staff opened it. Inside sat the Liberty Dragon vase. It was taller than I expected, white and blue with a raised dragon curling around the body, its glaze catching the vault light like water over bone. Even I, a man whose antique education had mostly been greed and terror, understood why people lowered their voices. Victor said, "The public insurance value is over $1 billion." Frank made a choking sound. Brooke went still. The vault staff watched the crate like it might hear disrespect. A blue number opened above the vase. Chance the Liberty Dragon vase destroys Evan Rowe if he challenges it and cannot prove fraud, 97%. Then another line appeared under it. Chance the Liberty Dragon vase is fake, 100%. Victor looked at me. Would you stake your name on that face you are making? My throat went dry. The vase's value appeared first, then the 100% fake reading sat under it like a death sentence. Victor Calder did not ask me to appraise the Liberty Dragon vase. He asked if I was willing to destroy it. Curiosity let a man talk. Victor had handed me $1 billion object and waited for my knees to vote. The blue number stayed over the vase. Chance. The Liberty Dragon vase is fake, 100%. Under it, another line pulsed like it enjoyed my blood pressure. Chance visible proof appears through normal inspection, 0%. Frank Russo stood behind me, breathing like a man trying not to be financially near the vase. "Kid," he whispered, "say you need coffee." Brooke Calder heard him. "Coffee will not make him smarter. It might make him quieter," Frank said. Victor looked at me, not at them. "You saw something." I did not answer fast enough. The vault door opened again, and a man in a navy suit walked in with the confidence of someone arriving to collect applause. Victor's voice cooled. "Gerald Crane, so this was the seller." Gerald Crane was handsome in the polished way expensive fraud like to be handsome. Smooth hair, clean cuffs, no wasted movement. He looked at Victor first, then Brooke, then Frank, and finally me. His smile changed when he reached me. "This is the young man?" Gerald asked. Victor said, "This is Evan Rowe." Gerald's eyes dropped to my suit. "Ah, the market story," Frank muttered. "He says that like-market people carry disease." Gerald ignored him. "Mr. Calder, the Liberty Dragon vase has been viewed by serious collectors, insured by serious money, and handled by serious professionals. If your new guest has a feeling, I suggest he write it in a diary." There it was. The room had found its bully. Brooke's eyes cut toward me. She expected a joke. Frank expected a disaster. Victor expected a choice. I looked at Gerald and said, "The vase is fake." The vault went silent. Not shocked silent. Expensive silent. The kind of silence where people start calculating which friendships survive the next sentence. Gerald laughed once. "Say that again if you know the insurance number. The vase is fake." His smile thinned. "Then prove it." Victor did not rescue me. That mattered. He did not warn Gerald to calm down. He did not tell me to be careful. He stood beside the crate and let the room tighten around my throat. Gerald stepped closer to the vase. "Every fraud accusation leaves a mark, Mr. Rowe. If you cannot prove this one, I will make sure yours follows you into every gallery that still lets you stand near the door." "You talk like a man who rehearses in mirrors," I said. Frank made a tiny dying sound behind me. Gerald's eyes sharpened. "Break it then." Brooke's head turned toward him. Gerald smiled at the room. "If he believes the proof is hidden, let him expose it. If he is wrong, he can explain to Mr. Calder how a homeless market trick pays for $1 billion vase." That word landed. Homeless. Kendra had mailed me the joke the night before. Gerald used it like he had already heard it from the same room of people. Maybe he had. Maybe rich people passed poverty around like seasoning. Chance Gerald knows. Kendra switched prop, 41%. Chance Gerald belongs to same forgery chain as the Saber mark, 89%, not proof. Enough pressure. Victor spoke at last. "If you touch the vase, Evan, the choice is yours. I will not pretend I ordered it." Brooke said, "Grandfather." Victor did not look away from me. "A man who wants access must own his risk." Frank grabbed my sleeve. "Do not own this much risk. Rent it. Walk around it. Fake a phone call. Chance I leave and keep Victor's respect, 8%. Chance I accuse without breaking and corner Gerald, 4%. Chance proof appears if I chip the lower inner base from the left ridge, 67%. Chance proof is destroyed if I strike the center, 88%. I had gone from $12 to millions in 2 days, but the old lockout wound had not disappeared. It had just learned bigger numbers. If I walked away, every rich person in that vault would put me back outside the door and call it maturity. I looked at Victor. "Do you have a tool?" Frank whispered. "I am going to be sick." A vault staffer brought a small brass hammer and a wrapped chisel. His hand shook when he placed them on the table. Gerald's smile returned. The tool made me look ridiculous, and his face said he enjoyed that. Good. Villains were easiest when they were entertained. I moved to the vase. Up close, the dragon was beautiful. That made it worse. Fake did not always look cheap. Sometimes fake looked like a thing people wanted to believe because disbelief was expensive. Brooke stepped near me and lowered her voice. "If you are guessing, stop. I am not guessing. Then what are you doing? Trying to be right where everyone can afford to hate me. Her face changed. Not soft. Never soft. But she stepped back. I set the chisel against the lower base. Chance current angle reveals proof without shattering outer wall. 62%. Not enough. I shifted left. 71%. Again. 74%. Gerald's voice slid over my shoulder. Careful. The more you tap, the more it looks like fear. No, I said. Fear is when a seller keeps talking while a buyer holds a hammer. Victor's mouth twitched. I struck. The sound was small. Too small. A thin chip snapped away from the underside of the base and skittered across the table. Nothing appeared. For one bright, stupid second, my mind emptied. No mark, no tag, no visible proof. Frank whispered, "Oh no." Gerald inhaled like a man tasting victory. "Mr. Calder!" Brooke moved toward the table. Victor lifted one hand. He did not stop Gerald. He stopped everyone else. The blue window flickered. Chance second strike at same angle destroys proof. 93%. Chance shallow side chip reveals concealed firing tag. 81%. My first strike had not failed because Chance sight lied. It failed because my hand had chosen the safer looking angle at the last second. Cowardice had a wrist. I moved the chisel. Gerald's smile sharpened. Now he improvises. Now he corrects, I said. I hit the side ridge, lighter than before. The base cracked with a dry little pop. A sliver of glazed material fell away, and behind it, sealed inside the inner foot, sat a tiny firing tag. Dark. Modern. Kiln-shaped. The same ugly mark from the saber. The vault staffer closest to Victor stepped back. Brooke said, "Black kiln?" Gerald Crane stopped smiling. The crack was small. Gerald's face, losing its script, was loud. Victor moved first. He picked up the fallen sliver with a cloth, then leaned close enough to see the hidden tag. His expression did not change much. His authority did. "Gerald Crane," Victor said, "you brought black kiln work into my vault." Gerald's mouth opened. "That tag was planted." "Inside a sealed base?" I asked. "You touched it. With a hammer, not a time machine." Frank laughed once, high and terrified. Gerald pointed at me. "He staged this. He knew where to hit because someone told him." Victor looked at him. "That is your defense? That a market nobody had better access to your fake than you did?" The words hit Gerald harder than my hammer hit the vase. Two Calder staffers stepped toward him. Gerald backed up. "Victor, listen to me." Victor's voice stayed calm. "You are done using my first name." Brooke moved to the side door and blocked it without drawing attention to herself. She did not need a uniform to make escape look stupid. Gerald saw her and went pale. "This is a misunderstanding," he said. "No," I said. "A misunderstanding is when Frank thinks storage trash is trash. This is fraud with tailoring." Frank looked wounded. "Why am I in it?" "Because growth requires examples." Gerald lunged toward the table. "Not at me. At the broken base." Brooke caught his wrist before the staff did. She twisted once, clean and hard, and Gerald folded over the table without touching the tag. Frank whispered, "I like her less when she is near me." Brooke held Gerald down until the staff took over. "Good," the vault finally breathed. Victor did not celebrate. He looked at the broken vase, the hidden tag, then me. "You understand what you just did? Reduce the resale value?" Brooke glared. Victor said, "You exposed a black kiln placement in my vault. That is not a market trick. That is war." The word war should have scared me more than it did. Maybe it would have landed harder if Gerald had not been bent over a table, if Brooke had not had his wrist, if Frank had not looked like he was deciding whether fear could be resold. The payoff was too loud. It covered the cost for exactly one breath. Then my phone buzzed with another transfer. Victor had sent $2 million. Memo, hazard fee. Frank saw the alert over my shoulder and made a small betrayed noise. "You get paid for breaking things now? I am expanding services." Victor handed me another card. This one had a direct number written on the back. No assistant, no front desk. "If Black Kiln comes near you," Victor said, "call me first." Brooke released Gerald to the staff and looked at me. "No, if Black Kiln comes near you, call police first." "Do I get yelled at less by one option?" "No," Brooke said, "then I will compare response times." She looked like she wanted to respond with something illegal. Victor's staff dragged Gerald toward the private hall. Gerald had stopped arguing. That frightened me more than his threats. Men who kept talking still believed the room could save them. Men who went quiet had moved the fight somewhere else. The vase broke once. My quiet life broke with it. Victor warned me before I left Calder Gallery and Vault. Black Kiln does not only sell forgeries, it protects routes, buyers, and reputations. You embarrassed a seller in my vault. They will look for the easiest pressure point. "That would be Frank," Brooke said. Frank jerked upright. "Why am I the easiest pressure point?" I looked at him. Brooke looked at him. Victor looked at him. Frank pointed at all of us. "This is profiling. This is accuracy." Brooke said. Frank stormed out ahead of me, offended enough to pretend fear was beneath him. In the parking lot, he turned back and jabbed a finger at my chest. Do not make that face. I am not easy pressure. Frank, you almost bought a fake saber from two men under a parking lamp. After tonight, I am a changed man. It has been 19 minutes. People grow fast under trauma. He tried to laugh, but the sound came out thin. Fear showed under the noise. Frank could joke about losing money all day. He could scream about deposits, vans, and fake sellers until the market lights shut off. But Black Kiln was not a bad customer. Black Kiln had reach, and Frank had spent his life making himself easy to find. Stay close tonight, I said. Frank snorted. Now you want me close? I want you alive enough to complain. He looked at me, and for half a second the comedy dropped out of his face. Then pride shoved it back on. Touching, he said. Still not easy pressure. He got into his van and slammed the door. I should have stopped him there. I should have handed him half the sword profit in the parking lot, made him sit with me, and kept him close until Victor's warning cooled down. Instead, I let him drive off angry because I was tired, rich, and arrogant enough to think danger needed an appointment. At the first red light, guilt caught up with the car. Not clean guilt, useful guilt, the kind with math under it. Frank had sold me the double sword for $5,000 because I had played his pride like a cheap instrument. Legally, it was mine. Morally, he was still a loud idiot who had put the object in my hands. Chance Frank becomes loyal if I offer a share before he asks, 78%. Chance Frank becomes dangerous if he hears the sale amount from someone else first, 84%. That second number was very Frank. I pulled into a gas station lot and opened my banking app. My thumb hovered over a transfer amount that would have made yesterday's version of me faint into traffic. 300,000, not half, not charity. A leash with velvet on it, I typed a message. Frank, before you start crying into your steering wheel, answer your phone. I have your Finder share. I stared at the words. Then I added, not make this emotional. I dislike wet business. I sent it. The read receipt did not appear. Chance Frank reads message safely within 5 minutes, 17%. The guilt turned cold. I called him once. No answer. I called again. This time the line clicked open for half a second. I heard road noise, Frank breathing hard and his voice saying, Kid, if this is another joke, make it fast. Then another voice farther away said, pull over. The call went dead. My hand tightened around the phone. I lasted 8 minutes before Chance Sight punished me. Chance Frank Russo answers safely if called now, 11%. The number appeared before I dialed. My thumb froze above his contact. I called anyway. No answer. Chance Frank is being followed, 76%. Chance Frank survives if I wait for Brooke and Victor to coordinate, 42%. Chance Frank survives if I move now and keep visual contact, 68%. That was not heroic math. That was ugly math. The kind that did not tell you what was safe, only what was less shameful. I ran to my car. Frank's van was easy to find because subtlety hated him. It rattled down the road toward the older warehouse edge of Harbor City, one taillight blinking like it had a nervous system. 2 black SUVs stayed behind it. I called Brooke. She answered with, what did you do? Frank is being followed. Her tone changed. Where? South Warehouse Road, 2 SUVs. Do not engage. Chance Frank is taken before Brooke reaches road, 83%, I said. Too late for that sentence. Evan. The line crackled as Frank's van swerved ahead of me. The first SUV cut him off. The second blocked the lane behind him. Men got out fast. No speeches, no movie poses. They pulled Frank from the driver's seat while he kicked, cursed, and tried to bite one of them through a jacket. I did not buy the saber, Frank shouted. One man punched him in the stomach. My hands tightened on the wheel. Chance I stop them alone in the road, 9%. Chance they kill Frank if I ram the SUV, 61%. Chance following the van creates rescue route, 33%. Brooke's voice snapped through the phone. Evan, talk to me. They have him. Do not follow into a secondary location. Chance Frank survives if I lose the van, 18%. I am following, I said. Brooke cursed. Send me your location and keep distance. I sent it and dropped the phone into the cup holder before fear made me obedient. The men shoved Frank into the back of the first SUV. His face turned toward the road for half a second. He saw my car. I expected him to look relieved. He looked furious. Of course he did. Frank Russo could be kidnapped by a forgery ring and still blame me for the inconvenience. The SUVs drove toward a warehouse gate near the water, where the streetlights thinned and the city started pretending it had no cameras. I stayed 2 turns back. Chance, I am noticed if I keep current distance, 44%. Too high. I slowed, killed my headlights for 3 seconds behind a parked truck, and let a delivery van pass between us. Chance I keep visual contact, 58%, good enough for a bad idea. The SUVs turned through a chain-link gate. The warehouse beyond it was low, dark, and wide, with one side door lit by a yellow bulb. Frank kicked one kidnapper in the shin as they dragged him out. The man hit him again. I almost moved. Chance immediate rescue attempt succeeds. 6%. My body hated that number. My pride hated it more. But chance sight had not dragged me from lockout to vault status, so I could die of ego in a warehouse lot. The men hauled Frank inside. The gate began sliding shut behind them. I rolled my car into the shadow beside the parked truck and watched the gap narrow. Chance hidden side entrance remains open for 30 seconds. 21%. Chance Frank dies before Brooke arrives if I do nothing. 39%. Chance rescue route exists if I enter before the side entrance locks. 24%. Barely alive. Not safe. Not smart. But alive. The warehouse gate closed behind Frank Russo, and ChanceSight showed me one rescue route with a number so thin it looked like it could bleed out before I reached the door. The warehouse side door stayed open for 26 seconds. Chance rescue route survives if I enter before the door locks. 24%. That number was insulting. It was also the only number that still had a pulse. Brooke Calder was still on my phone, her voice snapping from the cup holder. "Evan, do not go inside alone." "Frank is already inside alone," I whispered. "Frank is a hostage." "That is my point." I killed the engine, slid out of the car, and ran low along the shadow of the parked truck. The side door had a rusted handle, a yellow bulb above it, and a guard standing 2 steps away with his back half turned. Chance guard checks left in next 5 seconds. 61%. I stopped. The guard turned left. Chance guard checks right after cigarette drag. 82%. I moved before the cigarette reached his mouth. That was how Chance sight worked best under panic. It did not give me courage. It gave me timing, and timing was just cowardice with a schedule. I slipped through the door as the guard looked right. Inside, the warehouse smelled like wet concrete, old wood, and men who thought darkness made them important. Metal shelves cut the space into narrow lanes. A forklift sat dead near the middle. Beyond it, 3 men dragged Frank Russo toward a chair bolted to the floor. Frank was still fighting. Not well, but loudly. "I keep receipts," Frank shouted as one man shoved him down. "You break a vendor, you deal with vendor paperwork." The nearest kidnapper slapped him across the face. Frank blinked, looked offended, and said, "That was not even your best hand." The man raised his fist again. "Chance Frank suffers serious injury if I wait for Brooke." 47%. "Chance I cross open floor unseen." 13%. "Chance I create distraction with fire panel." 52%. I looked at the red firebox near the door. "Chance alarm brings outside patrol before Frank is moved." 31%. Too low. "Chance alarm panics kidnappers into killing cameras and splitting up." 64%. Ugly but useful. I pulled the firebox handle. The alarm screamed. The warehouse jumped. 2 men cursed and ran toward the front office. A 3rd man grabbed Frank by the collar. The guard from outside shoved through the side door, almost hitting me with it. I flattened behind a shelf, close enough to smell his cigarette. Brooke's voice hissed from my phone. "What was that?" "Building ambiance." "Evan, still alive. That is not a plan. It is a status update." The guard moved past me. I cut across the next aisle and reached Frank from behind the shelving. His wrists were tied to the chair with plastic zip ties, and his lip was split. He looked at me like I had personally invented kidnapping to annoy him. "You came," Frank whispered. "Do not make it romantic." "Untie me, then I will decide the genre." I pulled a small box cutter from a work table. "Chance clean cut without slicing Frank." 71%. "Hold still. I am tied to a chair, emotionally still." I cut the first tie. Frank winced. "You owe me money. I came into a warehouse full of criminals for you." "That is not payment. That is drama." I cut the second tie and shoved my phone screen in front of his face. The banking app still showed the pending $300,000 transfer. Frank stared. His eyes changed before his body did. "That is mine? Finder share? 300,000? Pending." "Pending?" He looked wounded again. "You rescue a man with pending? Stand up and it clears." Frank rose like the money had grabbed him by the spine. The alarm shut off. The sudden silence made the warehouse feel wider. From the front office, a man's voice barked. "Check the hostage." "Chance exit through side door before guards return." 22%. "Chance hide until Brooke arrives." 19%. "Chance Frank is the escape factor." 100%. That number appeared over Frank's head so brightly it felt personal. I stared at him. Frank stared back. "Why are you looking at me like I am expensive equipment?" "Because apparently you are." The first kidnapper rounded the shelf and saw the empty chair. Then he saw Frank standing beside me. His confidence came back fast. "You two picked the dumbest place to be brave." Frank took 1 step behind me. He picked. I was invited by force. 2 more men came from the front office. The outside guard closed the side door and locked it with a metal bar. The trap was not the ropes, not the alarm, the exit. The biggest man pointed at me. Victor Calder's little market pet. I hated that the insult worked. It hit the lockout wound, the market jokes, the suit I still wore like a costume. Tell Victor, the man said. Black Kiln does not lose face for free. Chance talking buys 10 seconds, 84%. Sure, I said. Should I include the part where 3 grown men needed zip ties for Frank? Frank whispered. Do not build them up against me. The big man smiled. Frank Russo? He is bait with a van. Frank's face twitched. The man kept going because villains loved free rope. Your friend broke one fake vase and thought he beat a syndicate. We grabbed the loudest idiot near him. Do you know how easy that was? Frank's shoulders rose. I finally understood the 100%. Frank was not the escape factor because he was brave. He was the escape factor because his pride was flammable. I looked at him and said, they are right about one thing. Frank turned on me. Excuse me? You were easy, kid. You let 2 SUVs take you because you were mad at a text. His face went red. The kidnappers laughed. I hit the next button harder, and the worst part? The double sword sold for $3.8 million. Frank stopped breathing. The men stopped laughing. 3.8, Frank said. Million. You said 300,000. Finder share. Partnership would have been bigger. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. I pointed at the men, and Black Kiln knew. They were going to use you, scare you, maybe dump you, and let you die thinking you had only lost a fake saber. The big man stepped forward. Shut him up. Frank moved first. He did not move like a fighter. He moved like a vending machine had fallen down a flight of stairs and decided to keep going. His shoulders slammed into the first man. The man flew backward into a metal shelf. Boxes burst open around him. Frank did not stop. He grabbed the second man by the jacket and shoved him into the forklift hard enough to make the dead machine roll 2 inches. 3.8 million? Frank screamed. The outside guard reached for him. I hit the guard's hand with a box cutter handle, ducked under his arm, and kicked his knee from the side. It was not graceful. It worked. Chance side door opens if metal bar is lifted now. 89%. Frank, door! Frank had the big man halfway over a pallet of wrapped crates. I am busy discovering betrayal. Discover it near the exit. The big man punched Frank in the ribs. Frank wheezed, grabbed him by the shirt, and headbutted him with the pure technique of a man who had never been trained and had never let that stop him. The sound was awful. The result was beautiful. The big man dropped to one knee. Frank staggered, pointed at me, and shouted, You owe me interest. Survive principle first. I lifted the metal bar off the door. Behind me, one of the men grabbed my jacket and yanked me backward. Chance Brooke arrives in under 2 minutes, 66%. Chance I last 2 minutes if held, 11%. Frank saw the man grab me. Something in his face changed again. The greed did not disappear. That would have been suspicious, but it got company. Hey, Frank said, breathing hard. The man holding me turned. Frank picked up a plastic crate and smashed it over his head. The man let go. Frank grabbed my collar and shoved me through the side door before I could thank him. Move, market genius. We spilled into the lot. The guard outside was coming back from the front gate. He saw us, saw Frank's bloody face, and hesitated just long enough for Frank to point at him. I have had a difficult evening, Frank said. The guard made the smart choice and stepped aside. We ran, not far. Frank's legs gave out halfway across the gravel. He caught himself on the hood of my car, cursed so hard the warehouse lights should have dimmed, and tried to pretend he had chosen that posture. Strategic pause, he wheezed. Chance Frank reaches passenger seat unaided, 18%. Chance, I drag him and get tackled from behind, 72%. The side door banged open again. The biggest kidnapper staggered into the lot with blood under his nose and murder in his eyes. Behind him, 2 others came out fast enough to make the gravel jump. Back inside, the big man said. Frank looked at me. I dislike his customer service. The big man pulled a knife from his belt. Not a dramatic blade, a cheap warehouse knife, ugly and close. Chance. He grabs Frank before Brooke arrives, 69%. Chance disarming him directly, 14%. Chance chain link gate buys time if jammed, 77%. The open gate still had a loose drag chain hanging from the post. I saw the number and moved before I had a full plan, which was becoming an unfortunate personal style. Frank, left, your left or hospital left, just move. I grabbed the chain and threw it around the gate handle as the big man lunged. The chain slipped. Of course it slipped. Chance Frank kicks gate at correct angle, 83%. Kick the gate. Frank stared at the knife, then at the gate, then at me. For 1 second, greed was not enough. Fear had him by the throat. I said the ugliest thing that would work. If he takes you back inside, I cancel the transfer. Frank's eyes went holy with rage. You would not dare try me from captivity. Frank kicked the gate. The metal panel slammed into the big man's arm and knocked the knife loose. I yanked the chain again, and this time it caught. The big man hit the gate chest first and bounced off with a sound that improved my whole week. Frank grabbed my sleeve and pulled me backward. I saved your cheap life, he said. I motivated your expensive foot. Partnership needs boundaries. The other men came around the gate instead of through it. Chance Brooke arrives before they reach us. 58%. Not good. Then sirens cut through the warehouse lot. Brooke's car screamed into the lot as we reached my car. 2 county police cruisers followed her through the gate. She got out with her hand on her weapon and murder in her eyes. "Down!" Brooke shouted. "I dropped!" Frank dropped slower and complained the whole way. "My ribs are a legal matter." The kidnappers burst from the side door behind us and froze at the sight of Brooke and the cruisers. Their tough guy posture ended right there. Men who could punch tied hostages suddenly remembered they had names, rights, and fragile wrists. Brooke put the biggest one face down on the concrete before he finished saying he wanted a lawyer. Frank watched from the ground, breathing hard. "I helped." Brooke cuffed the man and looked at him. "You are bleeding on my crime scene. Then bill Evan." "Everyone bills Evan," I said. Brooke's eyes cut to me. "You disobeyed a direct instruction. You are not my direct anything. Keep talking and I will become one." Frank raised one finger from the pavement. "For the record, he did rescue me." Brooke looked at him. Frank lowered the finger. I rescind tone, not content. The warehouse lot filled with flashing lights, but I did not let the police process take the scene. The important part was already done. Frank was breathing. The kidnappers had lost the hostage. Black Kiln had failed to make fear stick for one night. Brooke leaned closer to me while the officers moved around us. "One day, Evan, you are going to explain how you keep finding the one route that should not work. Today? Today you are going to Lakeshore Medical Center before Frank dies of drama." Frank called from the ground. "Pain is not drama." "With you," Brooke said, "it is at least theater." At Lakeshore Medical Center, Frank got bandages, pain medication, and an audience he did not deserve. He lay in the hospital bed with gauze under one eye, tape across his ribs, and his phone clutched in both hands. The nurse told him to rest. Frank nodded solemnly, waited until she left, and whispered, "Send it. You have internal bruising. I have external poverty. I completed the transfer. $300,000 left my account." Frank stared at his phone. The numbers reflected in his eyes like stained glass. Then he started crying, not noble tears. "Profit tears, you cheap devil," he whispered. "That is gratitude? 3.8 million and you send 300,000. I also entered a warehouse. You entered my trauma with discounts." I sat beside his bed. "You want the bigger cut? Earn it clean," Frank sniffed. "Define clean. No scamming me. No selling fakes as real. No hiding leads because you think I will steal your lunch money. We find targets together. We split profit by the deal. You bring market access. I bring calculation. 50-50? On agreed fines. What about objects I already own? If you already own anything real, I assume it was an accident and charge a discovery fee." He pointed at me with the phone. "Cruel. Efficient." Frank looked back at the transfer. His face softened in a way he probably would have denied under oath. "You came before the money cleared," he said. "The money was bait." "No," he swallowed. "You came before I knew there was bait." Frank Russo had just thanked me without damaging his brand. I let him have it. For 1 second. Then my phone buzzed. So did his. Frank looked first because greed made him fast, his face twisted. "Oh, that is filthy!" He turned the phone toward me. The message had already spread through the antique group chats. Frank Russo and Evan Rowe staged the vase break. Victor Calder paid them hush money. Black Kiln mark was planted. "Do not buy from either until the market clears them." There was no signature. There did not need to be. The first attack had used fists. The second used reputation. Chance rumor damages future antique deals within 24 hours, 91%. Chance private denial changes market opinion, 6%. Chance public reversal at North Pier Night Market restores access, 63%. Frank read the numbers on my face even if he could not see them. "We are going to North Pier," he said. "You are in a hospital bed." "Then get me pants." Brooke stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. I did not know how long she had been there, but her expression said she had heard enough to be annoyed professionally. "No," Brooke said. Frank pointed at his phone. "They are killing me socially. You were almost killed physically. This is worse for business." Brooke looked at me. "Do not encourage him." I looked at the rumor again. The warehouse had made Frank my partner. The smear was trying to make that partnership worthless before it took its first clean breath. Frank was greedy enough to stand up for money and somehow loyal enough to stay up for me. I stood. Brooke said, "Evan." "We are not investigating the rumor," I said. "We are going where it hurts." Frank tried to climb out of bed and immediately made a sound like a broken accordion. Brooke closed her eyes. 2 hours later, against medical advice, police advice, and probably several laws of common sense, Frank limped beside me under the lights of North Pier Night Market. He had one arm wrapped around his ribs, a cap pulled low over his forehead, and the righteous fury of a man whose customer base had ghosted him. At the first stall, Frank slapped cash on the table. The vendor looked at the money, looked at Frank, then looked away. At the second stall, the owner flipped his sign to closed while we were standing in front of him. At the third, a woman who used to beg Frank to look at estate leftovers suddenly found the floor fascinating. Frank's face went still. Every vendor who used to chase his money refused to meet his eyes. North Pier Night Market did not reject us loudly. That would have been easier. Loud rejection gave you something to punch, mock, or overpay. This was quieter and meaner. Vendors saw Frank Russo limping beside me with bandages under his collar and looked away like eye contact could catch fraud. Frank slapped cash on the next table. The seller pulled a tray of old watches back with 2 fingers. "Not tonight." Frank stared at him. "I have money. That is the problem." The people near the stall heard it. Heads turned. Nobody gasped. Nobody needed to. The rumor had done its work before we arrived. Black Kiln had not just kidnapped Frank, it had made him radioactive. Chance explaining ourselves changes seller behavior, 4%. Chance buying one loud public win reverses local opinion, 67%. Markets respected only one language, not innocence. Profit. I leaned toward Frank. "We need a public target. I am injured. You are bait. I keep asking for a promotion and you keep finding worse titles. Put on the sunglasses." Frank looked offended. "These are medical sunglasses. You bought them from a gas station. Healing has budgets." He pulled the sunglasses down anyway, along with the cap he had stolen from the hospital gift shelf. The disguise made him look less like a fugitive and more like a man avoiding his ex at a food court. Perfect. We moved deeper into the market. North Pier was different from Harbor City Antique Market. Harbor City sold old things under daylight and lies. North Pier sold old things under string lights, steam from food carts, and the kind of whisper network that could ruin a vendor before midnight. A small crowd followed us at a careful distance. Good. Let them pretend they were not watching. Frank stopped at a stall run by an older vendor with sharp eyes and a sharper chin. On the table sat brass locks, old coins, cracked picture frames, and a square wooden mechanism box about the size of a lunch pail. The box was ugly. That helped. Beautiful objects attracted rich amateurs. Ugly objects attracted people who thought they were clever. My favorite kind of victim. Chance Box has resale profit above $5,000, 88%. Chance Box contains hidden value above $50,000, 36%. I asked the better question. Chance highest recoverable value from this box exceeds $200,000, 42%. Not enough to celebrate, enough to perform. Frank picked up the box like he had no idea what he was doing. That part was not acting. "How much?" he asked, deepening his voice for no reason. The older vendor looked at the sunglasses, then at Frank's bandaged ribs. "For you? Closed." Frank lowered the glasses. "Do I look like Frank Russo? You sound like him if he had a head injury." The crowd laughed. Frank's ears went red. I stepped in before his pride bought something useless out of spite. The box. The older vendor looked at me and smiled without warmth. "You two are brave showing your faces here." "I paid for mine," I said. "Frank is on a payment plan." That got another laugh, but smaller. The crowd wanted to see whether laughing near us was still legal. I set $80 on the table. "Box." The vendor did not reach for it. A voice behind me said, "Do not sell to him." The crowd opened. Marcus Pike walked through like the market had been waiting for him to give it permission to breathe. He was broad-shouldered, neat, and quiet in the dangerous way. Not loud like Frank, not polished like Gerald Crane. Marcus looked like a man who could appraise an antique, carry a wounded person, and break your wrist without changing his calendar. The older vendor straightened. "Marcus, so the market knew him." Marcus looked at Frank first. "You should be in a hospital." Frank lifted one hand. "I accept gifts." Marcus ignored that and looked at me. "Evan Rowe, the young man who breaks a famous vase and receives a wire transfer before the dust settles." You say that like I should have waited for dust. I say it because half this market thinks you and Frank Russo planted a fake mark inside Victor Calder's vase. There it was, public, sharp, useful. The crowd leaned closer. Chance Marcus believes rumor fully, 29%. Chance Marcus is testing public reaction, 74%. Chance Marcus is connected to Whitlock Estate, 81%. That last number landed like a hand on the back of my neck. Marcus picked up the wooden box before I could stop him. He turned it once, pressed his thumb under the side lip, and a narrow inner drawer clicked open. The crowd made a real sound this time. The older vendor said, "I did not know it opened." Marcus looked at me. "Neither did he." Frank stopped fidgeting. That hurt worse than the crowd. Frank believed in my numbers because they kept making him money. Seeing someone else beat me to the object made his face go careful. Chance my first reading missed a hidden structure, 100%. Well, rude, but educational. Marcus held up the inner drawer. Inside was a thin strip of tarnished metal and a folded scrap of old cloth. Not treasure, just enough to prove he had found a lair I had not. Your question was shallow, Marcus said. He said it quietly. That made it worse. Loud men wanted attention. Quiet, competent men could actually take status away. The older vendor smirked. Maybe the vase was shallow too. The crowd shifted. Black Kiln had thrown the rumor. Marcus had given it teeth. Chance bluffing confidence restores crowd, 12%. Chance admitting miss, then recovering deeper, 58%. I hated honest numbers. I looked at Marcus and said, "You are right, I missed the first box." Frank's head snapped toward me. "Kid, quiet." The crowd liked that. Not because they respected humility, because they smelled blood. Marcus set the box down. Then walk away. No. You just admitted you missed it. I admitted I asked the lazy question. His eyes changed. Good. Competent people hated being bored. If I could not outstatus him yet, I could make him curious. I put my hand on the box without opening the drawer farther. Chance object contains second hidden compartment, 79%. Chance opening with force destroys value, 92%. Chance correct sequence uses 3 visible moves, 68%. That was all I needed. 3 moves. No lecture. I turned the box upside down. The crowd laughed again, thinking I was panicking. Marcus did not laugh. Move 1. I slid the inner drawer halfway out, then pushed it back until it clicked once, not twice. Chance sequence remains viable, 74%. Move 2. I pressed the brass corner that looked repaired. Nothing happened. The older vendor snorted. Brilliant! Chance press opposite corner now, 81%. Move 3. I pressed the opposite corner with my thumb and turned the bottom panel with 2 fingers. The penny shifted. A seam opened where no seam had been. Frank whispered, "Please be expensive." For once, I agreed with him spiritually. Inside the second compartment sat a small jade eagle token wrapped in dark cloth. The market went silent for a better reason. Jade had weight in these circles, but this was not about material. The eagle shape was clean, old, and severe, with one tiny scratch across the wing that looked accidental until Chance sight lit it up. Chance jade eagle token is recognized by Marcus Pike, 100%. Marcus's face confirmed it before the number finished fading. Frank pointed weakly. That is good silence, right? The older vendor reached for the token. Marcus caught his wrist. Not hard, hard enough. Do not touch it, Marcus said. The older vendor's smirk died. That changed the crowd more than the reveal did. A hidden token was interesting. Marcus Pike protecting it made it valuable. A man near the food cart said, "Could have planted it." There it was, the rumor's last defense. The crowd liked the accusation because it let them stay suspicious without admitting they had enjoyed the reveal. Frank turned, wounded and furious. Planted it when? Between my kidnapping and my medically discouraged shopping trip? The man shrugged. You people move fast. Frank took 1 step toward him. I caught his sleeve. Do not punch the audience. He is slandering my recovery. Marcus picked up the empty outer box and held it so the crowd could see the hidden channels. I opened the first layer. The second layer was still sealed when Evan touched it. The older vendor looked like he wanted to vanish into his own table. I looked at him. Say it. He blinked. Say what? Did I touch that box before I paid? The vendor swallowed. The crowd turned on him now, hungry for the cleaner answer. No, he said. He paid first. Did Frank? No. Did anyone with us handle it before Marcus opened it? The older vendor's jaw tightened. No, it was not a legal statement. It was better. It was public humiliation in the language of sellers. He had to admit that the object left his stall clean, and he had to do it while the hidden value sat on the table. The man near the food cart shut his mouth. Frank smiled at him. Apology accepted. He did not apologize, I said. I am expanding services. I looked at the vendor. Still closed? The vendor swallowed. Frank leaned on the table and gave him the most injured, smug, annoying smile I had ever seen. We have cash. The vendor took my $80 with the expression of a man selling a house for the price of lunch. The crowd turned like weather. 2 minutes earlier, they had watched to see us buried. Now phones came out. Vendors stepped forward. One man suddenly remembered he had a box in his car. Another said Frank had always been a complicated but talented buyer, which was market language for, I regret choosing sides. Frank soaked it in like a dirty sponge. Marcus did not. He still watched the token. Where did you learn that sequence? He asked me. The box told me. Boxes do not talk. Not to everyone. Frank put a hand on his bandaged ribs. That was arrogant. I missed this. Marcus looked at Frank. You should miss a chair. People keep saying that. Marcus turned back to me. You are either reckless, lucky, or worse. I have been called worse today. I am not insulting you. That was new. Before I could answer, the crowd parted again. This time, nobody laughed. An older man stepped into the light wearing a plain dark coat, no jewelry, no entourage, and the kind of authority rich people used when they were tired of proving it. Marcus moved half a step aside. That told me more than an introduction. Chance older man is Lionel Whitlock, 96%. The number made my stomach tighten. The dog, Tessa. The name on the kind of gate I had not been able to imagine 2 days ago. Lionel Whitlock looked at the Jade Eagle token, then at me. You almost lost, Lionel said. His voice was dry enough to sand furniture. I noticed. Good. Men who do not notice their first loss become very easy to sell to, Frank whispered. I am being attacked by context. Lionel's eyes moved to him. Frank Russo. Frank straightened so fast he regretted his ribs. Sir, I heard you were kidnapped, beaten, and discharged yourself for medical care to buy antiques under a hat. Frank paused. When summarized by a stranger, my life has problems. Lionel looked back at me. The rumor said you staged the vase. The rumor is lying. Rumors usually are. Markets still obey them. He reached into his coat, took out a folded $100 bill, and placed it on the table beside the Jade Eagle token. North Pier respects small money when it embarrasses big mouths, Lionel said. You bought that box for 80. I will buy your explanation for 100. The crowd leaned in. The test was the 100, not a formal challenge, not a committee, a public price tag. Lionel was giving the market a way to change sides without apologizing. I picked up the 100 and handed it to the older vendor. The vendor blinked. What is this? Reputation tax, I said. For selling me the box after everyone told you not to. Frank looked betrayed. Why are we rewarding him? Because he took our money in public. That makes him the first vendor here with spime. The older vendor stared at the bill, then at the crowd. His shame turned into pride because money is a shameless magician. I sold the box, he said loudly. Fair and square. That did it. Not completely. Markets never change completely in one breath. But the mood cracked. Vendors who had looked away started looking too directly. The rumor had not vanished, but it had lost the easiest version of itself. One woman stepped forward with a velvet pouch and asked if I was still buying. Frank nearly cried again. We are selectively accepting apologies in the form of inventory, he said. I put a hand on his shoulder before he could turn recovery into a cover charge. Chance North Pier vendors trade with us again after tonight, 72%. There it was. Not innocence, not forgiveness, access. Black Kiln had tried to cut off the market. One ugly box had opened the door back up. Marcus looked at me with open respect now. You could have kept the 100, he said. I just bought a witness who hates me less. Lionel laughed once. It was not warm, it was approval with teeth. Victor Calder told me your eye was useful, Lionel said. Marcus told me your mouth might get you killed. Both can be true. Tomorrow morning, Lionel said. Come to Whitlock Estate. Bring the token. Bring Frank if he can remain upright. Leave the market tricks outside my study. Frank whispered. Study sounds expensive. Lionel looked at him. It is, Frank whispered again. I will remain upright. Lionel turned to leave, then stopped beside me. One more thing, Evan Rowe. I did not like how he said my full name. Old men with power used full names the way kidnappers used zip ties. If you flatter me tomorrow, Lionel said, I will know. Then he walked away. The crowd released the breath it had borrowed from him. Marcus stayed behind. He wrapped the Jade Eagle token himself and handed it to me. Do not pocket it loose, Marcus said. That sounded caring. It was disgust with poor handling. I accept your tenderness. Frank groaned. Please do not flirt with the man who can fold us. Marcus ignored him. Be careful at the estate. Lionel Whitlock does not test objects first. What does he test? Marcus's eyes stayed on mine. People. That answer followed me out of North Pier Night Market harder than the rumor had followed me in. The hidden token had cleared enough of our status to keep trading alive. Marcus had yielded in public. Lionel Whitlock had summoned me by name. I had gone to the night market to survive a smear. I left with an invitation from a man who could make the smear look like a parking ticket. The next morning, Frank arrived at my car wearing a clean shirt, dark glasses, and the expression of a patient escaping supervision for the second time. Do not say anything about my posture, he said. Your posture is negotiating with gravity. Gravity has been hostile since the warehouse. We drove through the gates of Whitlock Estate just after 9. I knew it was money before I saw the house. The road was too smooth. The trees looked tired. Even the security gate opened like it had practiced being unimpressed. Marcus waited beyond it. So did a white and gray blur. Rocket shot across the driveway, hit the grass, changed direction for no reason, and barreled straight toward me like I owed him rent. I barely got the car door open before the husky shoved his head into my stomach. Frank stared. Why does the rich dog know you? Then Tessa Whitlock's voice floated from the front steps. Rocket, stop attacking guests before Grandpa starts judging them. I looked from the dog to Tessa to the estate behind her. The next probability window did not even need to appear. Rocket ran through the Whitlock gate like he owned me too. Tessa Whitlock stood on the front steps of Whitlock Estate in a soft sweater, holding a coffee cup and looking like the entire mansion behind her was just a large background prop for her dog. Rocket had his front paws on my coat. Frank had his mouth open. Marcus Pike had the patience of a man already regretting the guest list. I looked at Tessa. "You live here?" She tilted her head. "Sometimes." "Sometimes?" Grandpa says. "I treat the estate like a charging station," Frank whispered. "Charging station." Tessa noticed his bandages. "Are you okay?" Frank straightened. "I was recently involved in market violence." "He got kidnapped," I said. Tessa blinked. "Oh, that is worse." "Thank you," Frank said, moved by the minimum. The first time I met Tessa, she had been the careless girl with the expensive husky and the casual house comment that made my broke brain itch. I thought Rocket was a weird reward route. I did not know the dog was also a breadcrumb leading straight into one of the richest antique families in Harbor City. That was as much reflection as the moment deserved, because Rocket was still pressing muddy paws into my coat. Marcus finally snapped his fingers. "Rocket!" Rocket ignored him. Tessa snapped once. Rocket sat. Frank looked at Marcus. "That has to hurt." Marcus said, "Walk." We walked. Whitlock Estate did not show off the way Kendra Stone showed off. Kendra's money wanted witnesses. Lionel Whitlock's money looked like it had stopped caring who believed in it. The entry hall had stone floors, quiet staff, old wood, and paintings that made me afraid to breathe near them. Chance lowest value visible object in entry hall exceeds my old annual rent, 100%. Mean system. Tessa walked beside me like she had not just blown open an entire social connection. Grandpa was cranky after North Pier. "Because of me? Because Marcus said you were interesting." Marcus did not turn around. "I said difficult." "Grandpa likes difficult," Tessa said. "He calls boring men expensive dust." Frank leaned toward me. "Do not become dust. That is my current plan." We reached a pair of double doors at the back of the hall. Marcus stopped with his hand on the handle. "Inside," he said. "Answer Lionel directly. Do not perform for Frank. Do not perform for Tessa. Do not perform for me." Frank lifted a hand. "I object to being grouped with young people." Marcus opened the doors. Lionel Whitlock's study was not a study. It was an ambush with bookshelves. Every wall carried something expensive: a porcelain plaque over the fireplace, a bronze mirror near the window, a carved chest under glass, a narrow sword mounted above a locked cabinet, a row of small statues lit from below. The room looked like a collector's dream and an insurance agent's nightmare. Lionel stood near the fireplace with both hands on a cane. Victor Calder stood beside him. Seeing Victor there changed the air. This was not just a courtesy visit. The two old masters had compared notes, and I was the problem they had both decided to test. Victor gave me one small nod. That was all. No rescue. No warmth. Rich old men could make support look like a door you still had to open yourself. Lionel's eyes moved from my face to the wrapped jade eagle token in my hand. "Set it there," Lionel said. He pointed to a plain table in the center of the room. I placed the token down. Frank hovered too close. Marcus pulled him back by the sleeve before he touched anything. "I was observing," Frank said. "Observe from farther away," Marcus said. Tessa slipped into a chair near the window with Rocket at her feet. She looked curious, not nervous. That told me she had seen Lionel do this before and had survived the boredom. It did not tell me whether I would. Lionel pointed his cane at the room. "Choose the most valuable piece." There it was. Simple question. Murderous room. Chance porcelain plaque is genuine, 0%. Chance bronze mirror is genuine, 0%. Chance carved chest is genuine, 0%. Chance mounted sword is genuine, 0%. Chance small statues are genuine, 0%. The numbers appeared one after another until the whole study looked like a rich man's prank. I did not answer. Lionel's gaze sharpened. "You are taking longer than you did at North Pier." North Pier was honest enough to look cheap. Frank made a tiny warning sound. Victor watched me without blinking. Chance flattering Lionel keeps access today, 62%. Chance lying damages future trust with Victor and Lionel, 96%. Chance telling truth triggers immediate pressure, 88%. Good. My morning had been missing a chance to get thrown out of a mansion. I looked at Lionel and said, "None of them." The study went still. Tessa stopped petting Rocket. Frank closed his eyes. Marcus's hand shifted behind his back. Lionel said, "None. Everything visible in this room is fake," Frank whispered. "I miss the hospital." Lionel's cane tapped once against the floor. "You were standing in my study," Lionel said. "I noticed." "You are a guest in my house," also noticed. "And you are telling me my life's collection is fake." I looked at the plaque, the mirror, the chest, the sword, and the statues. The blue windows stayed cruelly consistent. "No," I said. "I am telling you the room you chose to show me is fake." Marcus looked at me then. Not angry. Interested. Lionel walked toward me slowly. The cane clicked each time. It sounded less like support and more like punctuation. Victor, Lionel said, your boy has a mouth. Victor answered, he has survived worse because of it. That is not an endorsement. No, Victor said, it is a warning label. Lionel stopped in front of me. He was not tall enough to tower over me, so he used age, money, and silence instead. Pick one real piece, he said. There is no real piece. One. No. The cane moved faster than I expected. It cracked against the side of the table inches from my hand. Frank jumped harder than I did. Tessa said, Grandpa. Lionel did not look at her. Stay out, Rocket growled softly. That was almost funny, but the room was not in a funny mood. Lionel leaned closer. Do you know what happens to young men who insult collections they do not understand? They stop getting invited back. They stop being invited anywhere. Chance Lionel can damage my access across elite antique circles, 93%. Chance backing down preserves short-term safety, 71%. Chance backing down destroys principal nomination path, 100%. I hated that last number. The profitable answer and the truthful answer were not the same thing for once. The profitable answer was to flatter him, name the least fake object, and let the old man feel wise. The truthful answer was the one that might get me hit with a cane. I chose the cane. Everything visible is fake, I said again. Lionel's face hardened. Why? The question had teeth. If I tried to explain like an appraiser, I would drown in details I did not truly know. If I hid behind instinct, I would sound like a fraud. Chance, concise object, action answer passes, 64%. I pointed at the plaque over the fireplace. The wear is in the wrong places. Then the bronze mirror. That one is trying too hard to look buried. Then the sword. That grip has old dirt and new fear, Frank whispered. New fear? A seller aged the handle more than the blade, I said. Lionel's eyes did not change. I stopped there. Chance continuing into more objects makes me sound desperate, 82%. And the main reason, I said, is you wanted me to pick one. If one were real, you would have let it sit quietly and watched whether I found it. This room is built to make cowards flatter you. The cane lifted again. Marcus moved half a step. Victor did not. Frank said, Evan, maybe let one statue be emotionally authentic. Lionel struck. Not my head, not my ribs. The cane hit my shoulder hard enough to numb my arm, and not hard enough to leave the kind of mark a lawyer could enjoy. The pain lit up white. Chance second strike if I change answer, 17%. Chance second strike if I hold answer, 43%. The system really knew how to make truth feel negotiable. Lionel asked, what is real in this room? I breathed through my teeth. I wanted to say the Jade Eagle token. I wanted to say Victor. I wanted to say anything clever enough to sound brave and safe at the same time. Then I looked at the fake objects, at Marcus watching for the flinch, at Victor refusing to help, at Tessa suddenly sitting forward, and at Frank clutching his ribs like he could not decide whether to run or sue. The test is real, I said. Lionel stared at me. I added, everything else is theater. The silence held. Then Lionel Whitlock laughed. Not a small laugh, not a polite, rich laugh. He threw his head back and laughed so hard, Rocket started barking. Frank opened one eye. Are we alive? Tessa exhaled. Probably. Marcus lowered his hand. Victor finally smiled. That was when I knew I had passed, not because anyone said it, but because the danger left the room and left embarrassment behind. Frank looked around at the fake study, then at the old men, then at me. So, none of this is real? Lionel wiped one eye with his thumb. Correct. Frank looked personally betrayed by objects he did not own. Rich people need hobbies with warning labels. Lionel pointed his cane at him. You would have picked the sword. Frank hesitated. Maybe. It is the worst fake in the room. Frank looked wounded. I am recovering from kidnapping. And taste? Marcus said. Tessa laughed first. That let everyone else breathe. Lionel walked to the fireplace and pressed a hidden latch under the mantel. A panel slid open behind the bookshelves. Inside were storage drawers, wrapped samples, and thin folders. I did not need a lecture. I needed one sentence. Lionel gave it to me. This room is made from black kiln study pieces. The name changed the fake room. Before, it had been a rich man's prank. Now, it was enemy material. Victor stepped forward. Gerald Crane was one door. This is the hallway. That was enough. I did not ask for a history. I did not want the story to become a seminar with better furniture. Lionel picked up a black folder and set it beside the Jade Eagle token. Black Kiln Syndicate has been copying old work, bribing small sellers, laundering reputation through respected rooms, and preparing candidates for the American Antiquities Guild, Lionel said. The details can wait. The result cannot. He looked at me. Victor wants you under protection, Marcus thinks you are reckless, Tessa thinks Rocket likes you, which is apparently evidence in this house. Tessa lifted her coffee. Rocket has range. Lionel ignored her. I think you are greedy, rude, and hard to buy. Thank you? Do not make me regret the second half of that sentence. He took a cream-colored nomination card from the folder and placed it on the table. At the top, in dark ink, were the words, American Antiquities Guild. Under that, my name, Evan Rowe, principal candidate. For a second, the room did not feel fake anymore. The lockout wound in me looked at that card and shut up, only for a second. Then Frank made a sound. It started as a wheeze, became a sob, and ended as a laugh. I know a principal, he said. Candidate, Marcus corrected. I know a candidate, Frank said, crying harder for some reason. That sounds unpaid. Victor stepped beside me. This gives you access to rooms that would have thrown you out last week. It also gives Black Kiln a reason to stop treating you as an inconvenience. So promotion and death threat. Lionel nodded. American tradition. Tessa looked at the card. Does this mean he comes to dinner? Frank raised his hand. I am available for dinner, Marcus said. No one asked. The room had turned from threat to reward so fast, my body still did not trust it. My shoulder throbbed. The nomination card sat under my name. Victor and Lionel stood on either side of the table like two locked gates opening at the same time. Lionel tapped the card with his cane. Do you understand what principal candidate means in practice? That people who hated me yesterday now have to hate me indoors? Tessa covered a smile with her coffee. Lionel ignored her. It means doors open, auction rooms, vault rooms, private family collections, guild evaluations. It means a seller who refuses to speak with Frank Russo might still answer a call carrying your name. Frank perked up. I support this title. It also means every fake expert you embarrass can point higher, Lionel said. At your sponsors, at Victor, at me, at anyone standing close enough to look useful. That cut through the glow. Access was not just a prize, it was a flare. Victor said, if you accept this path, you stop being a lucky buyer and become a side. I looked at the card again. The old me, the version outside the locked apartment door, would have grabbed it and asked where to sign in blood if blood came with housing options. The current me had a sore shoulder, a bleeding partner, a police officer who did not trust me, and a criminal network already switching from objects to people. I accept, I said. Lionel's expression did not soften, but the room did. Marcus gave one small nod. Tessa looked at Rocket like the dog had somehow voted correctly. Frank wiped under one eye. Beautiful, dangerous, potentially profitable. I am proud to have been kidnapped into this company. Victor said, do not make that the slogan. Status, protection, access. The old circle had finally put my name on a real door. Then Chancite ruined dinner. A red window snapped open at the edge of my vision. Brooke Calder. Chance Brooke suffers life-threatening injury within 1 hour, 34%. I froze. The number climbed, 36%, 39%. My phone was already in my hand before anyone spoke. I called Brooke. No answer. I called again. No answer. Victor noticed first. Evan. Brooke is in danger. Lionel's expression sharpened. How do you know? That question had trapped me in smaller rooms before. This time I did not have patience for it, because the same calculation that found your fake room is telling me her odds are getting worse. Marcus moved toward the door. Brooke is working today? Victor pulled out his phone. She mentioned the county operation. The red number climbed again. 42%. Tessa stood, her coffee forgotten. Call her station. Victor did. Lionel watched me. If this is fear from the test, sit down. It is not. If this is a guess, sit down. It is not. If you leave now, you walk away from a guild nomination before we finish securing it. The card was on the table. My name was printed on it. 2 days ago, I would have sold a kidney-adjacent emotion for that kind of access. Now, Brooke's unanswered phone made the card feel less like a prize and more like a test. Brooke had shoved me against a wall, threatened me, suspected me, and still moved when danger was real. She did not know Chancite. She did not trust me cleanly. But she had answered my warehouse call and walked into gunlight because I said Frank was taken. Chance Brooke answers next call, 3%. Chance waiting for confirmation costs rescue window, 87%. I picked up the nomination card, folded it once, and put it inside my coat. Lionel's eyes flashed. That is not a souvenir. Then bill me after Brooke is alive. Frank slid off the chair and winced. I am coming. You are not. I have become emotionally invested in not being the weakest rescued person. Marcus put one hand on Frank's shoulder and pushed him back down without effort. You are staying, Marcus said. Frank pointed at him. You enjoy this? Yes. Victor ended his call. His face had gone hard. Her phone is off. The operation moved locations. The red number climbed. 47%. I looked at Marcus. Can you drive fast? Marcus was already taking keys from his pocket. Lionel did not stop us. That mattered. He had tested whether I would lie for status, now he watched whether I would abandon danger for it. Victor grabbed my arm before I reached the door. "Bring her back!" There was no old master performance in his voice then, only grandfather. I nodded once. Tessa caught Rocket by the collar as the dog tried to follow. "No, you chaotic landlord!" Under any other circumstances, that line would have earned attention. The red number hit 51%. I ran. Marcus and I crossed the estate hall fast enough that staff stepped out of our path. Behind us, Frank shouted something about hazard pay. Tessa shouted that she would keep calling Brooke. Lionel's cane struck the floor once, hard, like a judge ending the test. The fake study had given me a real title. Brooke's number turned that title into a bill before the ink could dry. By the time Marcus's car tore through the Whitlock estate gate, chance sight had Brooke Calder's name glowing red in the corner of my vision, and the number was still climbing. Marcus Pike drove like the red number over Brooke Calder's name had reached through the windshield and grabbed him by the throat. The gates of Whitlock estate vanished behind us. Victor Calder's last words stayed in my ear. "Bring her back. Chance Brooks suffers life-threatening injury within 1 hour, 51%, then 54%, then 57%. Marcus did not ask me for a map. He asked one useful question. Nearest pressure? I looked at the floating window and forced my voice to stay human. Her operation. The place moved. She is alive right now, but the number is climbing after the first arrest. Marcus's jaw tightened. First arrest does not end the operation, it makes everyone relax. I hate when competent people make the scary part clearer. He took the next turn hard enough to make my shoulder hit the door. My phone buzzed until my hand ached. Tessa kept calling Brooke. Victor kept calling someone at the county. Lionel sent one message with no punctuation. "Do not die proving a point." Frank sent 3. "Is Brooke alive? Is Marcus fast? If I die of waiting, I bill you." At any other time, I would have answered the last one. The red number reached 61%, and jokes lost their place in line. Marcus got us to a brick apartment building near the county line. County police vehicles blocked half the street. A man with a bleeding eyebrow sat cuffed on the curb, yelling that he wanted a lawyer. 2 officers stood over a duffel bag full of stolen handguns. It looked controlled. That made my stomach drop. Brooke stood beside the building entrance, alive, angry, and very much not injured. Her hair was pulled back, her badge hung at her belt. One sleeve was torn near the cuff, and she was giving orders like the street belonged to her. The number over her name did not fall. It rose to 64%. I got out before Marcus finished parking. Brooke saw me and swore. "No, absolutely not. Good to see you too." She strode toward me. "This is an active scene. Get behind the tape. Your first suspect is not the danger." Her eyes cut to the cuffed man on the curb. "We recovered the guns. Then why is the number worse?" Brooke's jaw tightened. I had hit the part she was already afraid of. Marcus stepped beside me. "His warning brought me here. Victor knows." Brooke looked from Marcus to me. "You dragged Whitlock security into a county operation?" Technically, Marcus dragged me. I was cargo with opinions. "Evan?" The sharp way she said my name almost made me step back. Then Chance sight tore open above the building's side alley. Chance second suspect escapes through rear service route with civilian hostage, 78%. Chance child involved, 91%. My mouth went dry. "Where's the kid?" I asked. Brooke's face changed. "What kid?" A woman near the building entrance lifted her head. She had been sitting on the curb with a blanket around her shoulders, shaking too hard to speak clearly. Now she stood. "My son," she said. "He was upstairs with my sister. I thought officers brought him down." Brooke turned so fast one officer flinched. The woman grabbed her blanket. "He has a blue backpack. He is 7. He was in the back bedroom." The street changed. Not louder. Sharper. Brooke snapped an order to the nearest officer, then looked at me. She did not ask how I knew. Not yet. She did something better. She believed the warning enough to move, not trust. Trust was expensive, operational credit was cheaper, and Brooke hated that I had earned even that. Marcus said, "Rear service route?" I looked toward the side alley. Chance Brooke reaches hostage route as she enters front stairs, 38%. Chance Marcus breaks rear gate in time, 46%. Chance Evan identifies correct service door by odds, 87%. "Not front," I said. "Side alley, laundry door, now." Brooke did not wait for a committee. She ran. Marcus and I followed. The alley stank of old trash, rainwater, and bad decisions. A rusted metal door sat halfway down the wall. The handle had been wrapped with a dirty towel, not to hide it, but to keep it from locking behind whoever used it. Brooke saw the towel and went still for half a breath. "I cleared that hallway 10 minutes ago," she said. "Someone used it after you relaxed." She shoved the door open. Inside, a narrow service corridor ran behind the apartments. Pipes sweated overhead. A child's shoe lay near the first stairwell. The mother's scream from outside reached us a second later. Brooke picked up the shoe. Her face went flat. That was worse than panic. Chance suspect reaches rear exit before Brooke intercepts. 69%. Chance child heard if we shout. 76%. Chance child heard if we move silently. 44%. Quiet, I whispered. Brooke's eyes flashed because I had just given an order on her scene. Then she saw my face and swallowed the argument. We moved up the service stairs. At the second landing, a man backed into view with one arm around a small boy's chest and a box cutter pressed near the boy's shoulder. The blue backpack hung from one strap. The child's cheeks were wet, but he was trying not to sob, which somehow hurt worse. The man saw Brooke's badge and dragged the boy tighter. "Back up," he said. "Back up, or I open him." Brooke froze halfway up the stairs. Her hand was near her weapon, but the angle was garbage. Marcus stood one step below me, body coiled, too large for the narrow stairwell. Chance Brooke shoots cleanly, 12%. Chance, Marcus rushes without child injury, 18%. Chance suspect cuts child if Evan talks, 63%. Chance suspect shifts blade away if insulted into looking at Evan, 41%. 41 was filth. It was also the best number in front of me. The man shouted again. "I said back up!" I stepped above Brooke before she could grab me. Her whisper cut into my ear. "Evan, don't!" I looked at the man and said, "You picked a child because grown men kept disappointing you?" His eyes snapped to me. "Good, bad, alive." He tightened his grip. "Shut up, I would, but you look like the kind of idiot who needs instructions. You have police below, cameras outside, and a kid who will remember your breath forever. Drop the blade and you only leave pathetic. Keep holding him and you become famous for losing to a hallway." The boy's eyes moved to me. The blade moved half an inch from his shoulder. Chance tackle creates child-safe opening, 52%. Then Chance sight glitched. The blue window fractured red. Calculation strain, reserve unstable, the number vanished. For 1 second, I had no cheat, no clean route, no clever question, just a man with a blade, a child, Brooke holding her breath, and my own body standing in the wrong place. The man jerked the boy backward. I jumped. Not well, not heroically. I hit the suspect around the waist and drove him sideways into the railing. The child slipped. Brooke caught the boy before his knees hit the stairs. The box cutter scraped across my sleeve, missed skin, and spun down the steps. The suspect slammed his elbow into the side of my head. White light burst behind my eyes. I heard Brooke shout my name. Marcus came past me like a wall deciding to fall. He pinned the suspect against the landing and took him down so hard the old stairs shook. I hit the rail on the way down. The last thing I saw before the world blinked out was the little boy's blue backpack pressed against Brooke's chest while she held him with both arms. That was enough. I woke up in Brooke's car. Not a hospital bed. Not a heroic spotlight. Brooke's passenger seat, a headache like a debt collector, and a square bandage near my hairline. Marcus stood outside the driver's door speaking to Victor on the phone. The boy was gone. The street was calmer. The red window over Brooke's name had disappeared. I lifted one hand. Did I die cheaply? Brooke turned in the driver's seat. Her face did not soften, her voice did. "The child is alive. The second suspect is in custody. Paramedics checked you. You refused transport before you fully woke up, apparently because you are a financial disease." That sounds like me. She stared at me too long. Then she said, "Thank you." 2 words. No sarcasm. They hit harder than I expected. I tried to sit straighter and immediately regretted having a skull. Do not make this emotional. I am concussed and vulnerable to sincerity. Brooke looked away through the windshield. "You knew again, before anyone else." There it was, the bill. Chance lying fully convinces Brooke, 7%. Chance partial truth increases trust but risks exposure, 68%. Chance silence damages trust, 74%. "I see odds," I said. Her eyes came back to me. I added quickly, not like a psychic, not like a vision board with a gift shop. "Situations, risks, sometimes objects, sometimes people. It is not perfect, it just points." Brooke's hand tightened around the steering wheel. "Who else knows? Nobody knows it the way I do. Victor and Lionel think I calculate. Frank thinks I am a cruel investment instrument. Nina thinks I am an emergency boyfriend with suspicious timing." A corner of Brooke's mouth almost moved. "Almost. Hide it better," she said. "That warning was not a threat. Not this time. It was protection with teeth. If the wrong people understand what you can do, they will not just test you with antiques," Brooke said. "They will test what you can live through." Chance Brooke keeps Evan's secret for now, 89%. The number flickered. Then the entire window went red. Reserve low. Life protection override recorded. Further high load calculation may consume future chance reserve. I stared. Brooke saw my face. "What? The cheat saved me, I said, and sent me the bill. She did not ask for a lecture. Good. I did not have one. Marcus opened the driver's door. Victor wants you both at Whitlock Estate. Lionel says dinner will proceed because fear digests better with witnesses. That man needs a normal hobby, I said. Brooke unbuckled. My grandfather is there? Waiting, Marcus said. Her expression shifted. The officer became the granddaughter for half a second, and I saw how badly Victor's message had landed. When we returned to Whitlock Estate, Victor met Brooke in the entry hall. He did not hug dramatically. He put one hand on the side of her head, checked the tear in her sleeve, and breathed once like he had been holding that breath since my call. Brooke said, I'm fine. Victor looked at me over her shoulder. You brought her back. She walked most of the way. Brooke elbowed me without looking. Frank was waiting near the dining room with a cane he did not need and a face that demanded attention. I was not allowed to come, Frank said. This household is anti-partner. Tessa stood beside him with Rocket sitting at her feet. You tried to leave through the side door and Marcus locked it. Security theater, Frank said. Lionel's voice came from the dining room. Sit down before I medically discharge you myself. Frank sat. The dinner should have been a reward. It had all the pieces. Long table, heavy silverware, Victor at one side, Lionel at the other, Tessa trying to feed Rocket under the table. Brooke pretending she did not care that everyone kept looking at her torn sleeve. Frank guarding his plate like Black Kiln might steal the bread. Then the snobs arrived inside the family skin. Natalie Whitlock Wexler entered first, Lionel's older granddaughter, elegant and tired-eyed. Beside her came Simon Wexler, her husband, polished enough to look harmless if you believed polish was character. Behind them walked Brett Harlow, all sharp smile and borrowed importance, with two young relatives trailing him like he had promised them entertainment. Brett looked at me and did not bother hiding the measurement. So this is the market prodigy, Brett said. I expected someone taller. Frank lifted a fork. I expected dinner before class contempt. We all suffer. Natalie gave Frank one exhausted smile. Simon did not smile at all. He looked at the nomination card near Lionel's plate, then at me, then at Brooke's sleeve. Chance Simon Wexler is uncomfortable with Evans Guild access, 72%. Then the number fuzzed. Reserve low. I blinked hard. Brett noticed the pause and pounced. Problem? He asked. Does the magic eye need batteries? The young relatives laughed. Brooke's head turned toward him. Brett, he smiled at her. Come on, Brooke. Everyone is thinking it. A week ago nobody knew him. Now he breaks vases, saves hostages, and gets a principal nomination. Either he is brilliant or everyone here is bored. Kendra was not at the table, but her roomer had arrived early and found a seat in Brett's mouth. Lionel did not shut him down. Victor did not either. Old men and tests. Again, Brett set 3 small objects on the table. A dull paper knife, a bronze medallion, and a little enamel box. Simple, Brett said. Tell us which one belongs in a serious collection. No vault, no stage, no vase to break. Chance paper knife is highest value. Error. Chance bronze medallion is genuine. Error. Chance enamel box is bait. 61%. Then red static. My stomach sank. Frank whispered. Say fork. Forks are safe, Tessa whispered. Rocket likes the box. Marcus, standing by the wall, did not help. Brooke watched me with something new in her eyes. Not suspicion. Concern. That was worse. I could survive contempt. Concern made me want not to fail. Brett leaned back. Take your time. I know guessing is harder without a crowd chanting your name. Insult. Attempt. Choice. Fine. I picked up the enamel box first and turned it once. Too pretty. Too clean. Too eager to be chosen. I set it down. This is what you wanted me to praise, I said. Which means it is trash with manners. A young relative's smile died. Brett's jaw tightened. I picked up the bronze medallion. It had the right weight but the wrong silence. I could not prove that. I did not need to. This one is the backup trap, I said. Good enough to tempt a coward. Not good enough for a room full of people pretending not to enjoy this, Frank whispered. I am enjoying it. Finally, I lifted the dull paper knife. It had no drama, no shine, a small repair line near the handle. Victor watched my hand then, and that was the clue the broken system almost missed. Chance Victor recognizes paper knife, 83%, one clean flicker. Enough. This, I said, belongs in a serious collection, not because it is pretty, because the owner did not need it to impress fools. Brett's face went still. Victor reached across the table and took the paper knife from my fingers. It was my father's, Victor said. I had it removed from the display case this morning. Brett was told not to use it as a toy. That was not a shout. It was worse. Brett's borrowed importance collapsed in front of everyone he had wanted to impress. He stood. Victor, I was only... Apologize, Brooke said. Brett looked at her. Brooke's voice stayed flat. To Evan. Then to my grandfather's table. The young relatives went quiet. Brett swallowed his pride so loudly even Frank could have appraised it. I apologize, Brett said to me. I smiled. For the height comment too, it was lazy. Frank choked on a laugh. Brett's ears reddened. For the height comment. Lionel laughed into his glass. That broke the table open. Tessa clapped once. Rocket barked under the table. Frank declared the apology acceptable but underpriced. Brooke shook her head, but the corner of her mouth finally gave up and moved. Then Lionel ruined peace on purpose. Victor, he said, your granddaughter listens to him now. Mine already let her dog choose him. We should discuss whether the boy needs a family leash before the guild seat makes him arrogant. Tessa brightened. Rocket chose first. That is binding. Brooke pointed her fork at Lionel. Do not make me regret surviving today. Victor looked at me. He did run toward a blade for a child. That is either courage or defective judgment. Frank raised his hand. As his partner, I vote defective but profitable. Natalie laughed softly. Simon did not. His thumb turned a black ring on his finger once, twice, then stopped when he noticed me noticing. Chance Simon Wexler connects to Black Kiln funding route, 67%. The window flashed, then broke apart. Reserve critical. Plan C available. Cost, future chance reserve. My fingers went cold around the water glass. Plan C sounded clean. It was not. The system was offering to keep calculating by borrowing from the part of my life that had not happened yet. Future luck, future escapes, future doors that might open or stay locked because I got greedy at a dinner table. I lowered the glass. No, not for a suspicion, not for Simon's ring, not for a number that had not finished becoming truth. Brooke saw the change. Evan? Headache, I said. It was almost true. Dinner ended with more jokes than safety. Brett avoided my eyes. Brooke walked beside Victor, letting him fuss once and only once. Lionel kept the nomination card locked under his palm until I promised not to fold it again. Tessa told Rocket he had excellent taste and no legal standing. Frank stole 2 rolls and a napkin and called it medical supply. Simon left early with Natalie, polite enough to be ugly. As he passed me, he said, a man with sudden access should be careful where he invests his friends. I looked at him. Is that advice or an advertisement? His smile stayed smooth. Both, in the right market. Then he was gone. I did not know yet what that line was worth. I only knew Chancesight was too weak to price it without taking something from me. Outside the dining room, my phone buzzed. Frank stood beside me, still chewing stolen bread, and held up his own phone. Market Contact just sent me something, he said. Asterbridge Capital, brokerage front, handles private money for collectors who do not want questions. Guess whose name keeps showing up around it? I did not answer. Because I already knew. Simon Wexler's black ring, his warning, the broken pulse from Chancesight, and Frank's lead all pointed at the same door. Chance exposing Asterbridge while Chancesight reserve is critical. Error. Chance waiting gives Black Kiln time to move funds, 88%. Chance walking into Asterbridge without full system support creates major betrayal payoff, 71%. I put the phone away. The rescue had saved Brooke. The dinner had saved my status. The system had survived both by handing me a bill I could not afford to keep ignoring. Then Frank gave me a money trap while Chancesight was half dead. A day earlier, that would have stopped me. Now it only made the door look more expensive. Frank Russo found Asterbridge Capital because greed made him better at maps than morality. He had 3 market contacts, 2 bruised ribs, 1 stolen dinner roll in his pocket, and the confidence of a man who thought hospital discharge papers were polite suggestions. By morning, he had traced the whispers around Black Kiln money to a glass-fronted office tower in Harbor City. Chancesight was still limping. Every time I asked a hard question, the blue window crawled instead of snapped. Chance Asterbridge Capital links to Black Kiln money, 58%, then static. Chance Simon Wexler controls Asterbridge decisions, 71%. Then red, reserve critical. Plan C available. I had refused Plan C at Whitlock Estate, and I refused it again outside the tower. I was not spending future luck just to make an accusation prettier. Frank leaned against a planter and adjusted the dark glasses he insisted were medical. I still think I should be the reckless investor. You look like a reckless lawsuit. That is investor adjacent. Marcus stood by the curb watching the lobby doors. Simon saw you both last night. Simon saw me in a dinner suit with a concussion, I said. Today he gets a hat, tinted glasses, and more arrogance. Rich men respect arrogance. They mistake it for liquidity. Frank looked me over. You look like a man who won money too fast and bought the wrong coat. Perfect. Marcus did not like the plan. That made 3 of us, but he understood the rule by now. Process was only useful if it created pressure. We were not going into Asterbridge to search files. We were going in to make Simon Wexler react where people could see him. I entered the lobby alone. Asterbridge Capital smelled like polished stone, chilled air, and fees. The front desk had a company name in silver letters, a waiting area full of nervous money, and assistants trained to smile without promising anything. I gave no fake name that mattered. I gave a role. Private collector, I told the lobby assistant. New money, impatient money, the kind your boss either handles today or regrets tomorrow. The assistant's smile twitched. Do you have an appointment? I set my phone on the counter with a banking screen open just long enough for numbers to do what manners could not. Her posture changed. Money was the universal language of being forgiven for rudeness. 10 minutes later, Simon Wexler walked out of the inner office. He wore a charcoal suit, a perfect watch, and the same black ring he had turned at dinner. He looked at my tinted glasses, the hat brim, the loud coat, and decided I was not worth remembering as Evan Rowe. His mistake gave me the first win. I understand you have capital to place, Simon said. His voice was warm, too warm. Men like Simon used warmth the way Gerald Crane used certificates. Capital, objects, and a very short attention span, I said, lowering my voice into something uglier than usual. I made money flipping antiques. Now I want bigger rooms. People keep saying Astor Bridge can make dirty provenance look like a clean opportunity. Simon did not flinch at dirty. He flinched at provenance. Small, useful. We do not use language like that here, he said. Then what do you call it? He guided me into a private glass office, not far enough from the lobby to be safe and not close enough for casual listeners. Perfect for a man who believed control came from layout. Simon closed the door. Collectors often need bridge financing, quiet introductions, and reputation repair. Astor Bridge does not move stolen goods. I did not say stolen, I said dirty. His smile held. Chance Simon offers indirect black kiln access if bait exceeds 8,064%. Then the window sputtered. I did not need the exact number. I leaned back. I can start with 2 million, 10 if the first door opens. But I do not want a lecture about respectability. I want to meet people who make fake things useful before old men break them with hammers. The line found the bruise. The Liberty Dragon vase was still bleeding reputation through their network. Simon folded his hands. You are referring to the incident at Calder Gallery and Vault. I am referring to a market nobody getting paid 2 million for swinging a hammer. Imagine what a serious investor can get paid for knowing which side of the hammer to stand on. His ring turned once. Astor Bridge has relationships with collectors who prefer discretion, Simon said. Some of them have been unfairly embarrassed by recent theater. If you want access, you first prove you are not another amateur looking for gossip. Black kiln, I said. The office went silent. Not lobby silent, guilty silent. Simon stood. Do not say that name in my office. There it was. Not a confession. A door crack. Chance Simon Wexler is protecting Black Kiln funding route, 79%. The number held for 1 clean second. Then, red static swallowed it. I smiled like a stupid investor, not like Evan Rowe. Good, I said, so the name has value. Simon opened the office door. Have your people send proof of funds, then perhaps we continue. Perhaps bores me. Then perhaps you are not our client. He escorted me back toward the lobby. A group of older investors waited near the seating area, whispering over phones. A nervous man held a withdrawal form so tightly the paper bent. Simon's eyes swept over them and his smile tightened by one hair. Frank was doing his part outside. By the time I stepped onto the sidewalk, 2 calls had already gone through the collector circles. Astor Bridge is freezing withdrawals. Astor Bridge covered Black Kiln losses. Astor Bridge used family money to plug a hole. The rumors were ugly, fast, and not all mine. Black Kiln had taught me the market respected public fear. I just returned the lesson with interest. Marcus looked at me. Did he bite? He told me not to say Black Kiln in his office. Frank grinned. Oh, he bit. Now we see if he bleeds. The first investor walked into Astor Bridge at 10:42. The next 6 came before 11 o'clock. By noon, the lobby had stopped smelling like polished stone and started smelling like panic in expensive coats. No paperwork drove it, no hidden file, no secret folder, just people with money demanding to touch it. I want my funds moved today, one older investor said to the assistant. Another slapped a phone on the counter. Your office told me liquidity was guaranteed. Was that a lie? A third pointed toward Simon's glass office. I will speak to him now. Simon came out with the exact face men wore when drowning in public, but still judging the water. Everyone, he said, Astor Bridge is stable. There is no freeze. There is no exposure issue. This is a malicious rumor. Frank stood near the lobby doors in his dark glasses and whispered to me. He says stable, like my van says reliable. Stop enjoying this visibly. I was kidnapped. I deserve hobbies. Simon lifted both hands. In fact, 2 major clients are arriving shortly with additional capital. I ask you to judge us by who trusts us, not by anonymous panic. That was his overreach. Frank's 2 fake whales entered on cue. They were not named because they did not deserve names. They were role labels in borrowed coats, walking with the swagger of men who had practiced rich in a restroom mirror. One carried an empty leather folder, the other wore sunglasses indoors, which offended Frank so deeply he almost broke character. Simon saw them, saw the coats, saw the lobby watching, and chose greed. "Gentlemen," Simon said, loud enough for everyone, "thank you for coming personally. Your commitment means a great deal today." The first fake whale shook his hand too hard. "We like confidence. We brought 8 million ready to place." The lobby shifted. Panic hated being alone. If new money arrived, old money might calm down. Simon smiled. Then the second fake whale said, even louder, "But before we add, our people want to test liquidity. Pull our existing 3 million first, then we redeposit 8. Standard confidence check." Simon froze for half a second. The old investor near the counter heard it. So did everyone else. "Existing?" the older investor said. "You already have money here?" The first fake whale waved the empty folder. "Sure, tons. Very private," Frank whispered. "Tons is a unit now." Simon tried to guide them away. "Let's discuss that inside." The nervous investor with the bent withdrawal form pointed at the fake whale. "I know him. He tried to sell estate watches at North Pier last month. He owes half the pier money." The lobby turned. The fake whale tried to look offended. He looked unemployed. The second fake whale took one step back and hit a side table. A woman near the seating area snapped. "Those are the major clients?" Simon said. "They are not." The first fake whale panicked correctly. "You said, stand here and look confident until the transfer cleared." Beautiful. Not because it was true, because Simon's face made everyone wonder why it sounded like it could be. Investor fear became investor movement. The lobby erupted. People surged toward the counter, phones out, voices rising, every one of them suddenly needing proof that their own money still existed. Simon tried to smile. He tried to order assistance. He tried to call security. Every attempt made him look smaller because the crowd had already seen him welcome 2 broke actors as saviors. Astor Bridge did not collapse because of one document. It collapsed because Simon Wexler made greed public at exactly the wrong second. He retreated into his office and shut the glass door. Through the glass, I saw him on the phone. His smooth face cracked. His ring turned fast enough to shine. "Chance Simon moves emergency family money to cover withdrawals, 83%. The number flashed clean. Then, died. I did not need to see accounts. I needed the human consequence. 10 minutes later, Lionel Whitlock walked into Astor Bridge Capital with Natalie Whitlock Wexler at his side, Victor behind him, and Marcus clearing space without touching anyone unless they made him. The lobby quieted because Power had entered wearing an old man's cane. Natalie looked at Simon through the glass. Her face said she already knew something was wrong. That hurt to see. Not because Simon deserved pity, because Natalie did not deserve the moment he had dragged her into. Simon came out of his office too fast. "Lionel," he said, "this is a manufactured attack. Evan Rowe caused it." There it was. False blame, right on schedule. Lionel did not sit. He did not ask for a report. He stood in the middle of the lobby with investors, assistants, Frank, Victor, Marcus, Natalie, and half of Simon's public reputation watching. "Explain," Lionel said. Simon pointed toward me, or rather toward the loud-coated investor I was still pretending to be. "He came here this morning. He wanted access to private collector funds. When I refused, he staged a run with actors. He is connected to the panic. He may even be the Black Kiln plant." A few investors turned toward me. Frank's mouth opened. I lifted one hand to stop him. Simon was doubling down. "Let him stand on it." Lionel looked at me. He did not recognize the disguise at first, then his eyes narrowed. I took off the tinted glasses, then the hat. The lobby's attention snapped into place. Simon stopped breathing normally. I said, in my own voice, "You really should remember clients who say Black Kiln in your office." Natalie's hand went to her throat. Victor's face hardened. Simon recovered fast, but not cleanly. "This proves my point. He deceived us." "Yes," I said, "I did. I walked in as a greedy investor and asked where dirty provenance becomes clean money. You did not call police. You did not throw me out. You told me not to say Black Kiln in your office because the name had value." Simon laughed sharply. "Your word against mine." "No," Lionel said. Everyone looked at him. Lionel's voice stayed low. "My family reserve received an emergency transfer request from Astor Bridge 13 minutes ago. It carried your authorization code, Simon. You moved family money to cover a public run you said did not exist." Simon turned white with anger. "To protect the family. From whose hole?" Victor asked. Simon looked at Victor, then Lionel, then Natalie. His mask had too many hands pulling at it. "I built this firm while everyone treated me like a guest at my wife's table," Simon snapped. "I protected Whitlock money when your antique games put pressure on everything. I cleaned messes you old men were too proud to admit existed," Natalie whispered. "Simon." He heard her voice and realized he had said too much, but confession-level humiliation did not always sound like I did it. Sometimes it sounded like I deserved credit. I stepped closer. Did Black Kiln pay you, or did you pay them? Simon pointed at me. You don't know anything. I know you were uncomfortable with my guild access. I know your ring matches the office seal on the private fund card Frank's contact sent. I know you recognized Black Kiln before I explained it. And I know when fake whales walked in, you grabbed them because you needed the room to believe someone still trusted you. He looked at Lionel. This boy is manipulating you. He manipulates everyone. Ask Frank, ask Brooke, ask Victor. He arrives poor, then somehow every room pays him. Frank stepped forward, limping but loud. He manipulates scammers. There is a difference, Simon sneered. You are a market clown. Frank smiled. Yes, and even I did not hand emergency family money to a panic room full of investors. The lobby reacted to that because it was simple enough to hurt. Simon turned toward Natalie. Tell them. Natalie's eyes were wet now, but her voice did not break. Tell them what? That you said Asterbridge was safe? That you said Grandpa never respected modern money? That you said Evan would ruin everything by making the guild look backward? Which lie should I choose first? Simon flinched. The emotional consequence stood at Simon's side now. Not a file, not a report. His wife speaking in public with the exhaustion of someone who had been listening to his resentment for years. Lionel lifted his cane and tapped the floor once. The lobby shut up. Simon Wexler, Lionel said, you are removed from every Whitlock account, every family office conversation, and every guild-related fund pending consequence. You will leave Asterbridge control today. Simon looked at Natalie. You cannot let him do this. She closed her eyes. For 1 second, I thought she would walk away from him. She did not. Natalie stepped beside Simon. Lionel's face tightened. Natalie said, I will not defend what he did. I will not ask you to keep him in business, but I am not divorcing him in a lobby because everyone wants a clean ending. That complicated the room. Frank whispered, messy, strong, bad for applause. He was right. Asterbridge had collapsed. Simon had been exposed. The family consequence had landed. But Natalie refused to let punishment become a neat little show for people who wanted betrayal wrapped before lunch. Lionel looked older for one breath. Then the old Master Steel returned. Take him home, Lionel said. Not to the accounts, not to the office, home. If he runs, you call me before you love him. Natalie nodded once. Simon looked around the lobby. Investors who had once begged for his advice now stared at him like bad debt in a suit. His pride broke before his company finished falling. An investor near the counter shoved a withdrawal form back at the assistant and said, if his name is on it, I want out today. That one line did more damage than a folder of accusations. Simon heard it. Natalie heard it. Lionel heard it too, and his cane hand tightened because the consequence was no longer private family shame. It had become public market judgment. Frank lifted his phone and showed me the collector chat exploding in real time. Asterbridge was not being debated anymore. It was being abandoned. Simon wanted to prove he was more than a house guest. He proved he could burn down the house. Frank leaned toward me. Do we clap? No, we leave before someone bills us for the lobby. Victor stopped me near the doors. Black Kiln just lost a route. They will stop using polite pressure. They kidnapped Frank and tried reputation murder. That was polite? For them, Victor said. Lionel joined us, cane in hand. The guild evaluation moves up. Tonight, we cannot let Black Kiln shift candidates before the room sees what they are. There it was. No rest, no victory lap, payoff into pressure, because apparently that was the only rhythm my life respected. Marcus said, I will drive. Frank lifted a hand. I am coming. I have earned seating. You have earned medical supervision, Marcus said. Same chair, different label. Brooke called as we reached the curb. I answered, and she did not waste a word. Simon is down, publicly, messily. Natalie stayed with him. Brooke was quiet for 1 second. That will hurt Lionel. It hurt the room. Then listen carefully, she said. After the Asterbridge panic, 2 Black Kiln-linked people vanished before county officers could reach them. Do not travel alone. Do not improvise alone. Do not make the next dangerous thing funny. A box truck parked across the street started its engine. Chance truck enters traffic safely. Error. The red static crawled across my vision. Marcus opened the rear car door for me. I looked at the truck. Chance truck drifts into Evans Lane within 30 seconds, 81%. My hand went cold around the phone. Brooke, I said, too late for the funny part. Marcus heard my voice and moved. The truck pulled away from the curb. For half a second it looked normal. Then it drifted across 2 lanes toward us like bad luck had learned how to drive. The truck did not race toward us. That would have been easier. It drifted. Slow enough to look accidental. Fast enough that Marcus Pike had 1 breath to choose between the curb, the truck, and the sedan beside us. Chance impact if Marcus brakes, 79%. Chance survival if Marcus mounts curb, 64%. Chance pedestrian injury if curb, 42%. Then chance sight sputtered red and lost the rest of the math. I shouted, left, but late. Marcus turned left, late. The car jumped the edge of the curb, clipped a trash can, and scraped past the truck with 6 inches and a scream of metal to spare. The truck kept going as if it had merely yawned in our direction. Frank hit the back of my seat and howled. My ribs have lawyers! Marcus stopped the car halfway onto the sidewalk. His face stayed calm, but his hands tightened on the wheel. Brooke was still on my phone. What happened? Truck, I said. Accident. I looked at the truck turning the next corner without stopping. Chance truck driver knows Evan target, error. Chance incident repeats if route unchanged, 88%. No, I said. Bad luck just took a first swing. Marcus got us moving again, but the city had changed shape. Every intersection looked like teeth. Every balcony looked loose. Every stranger with a hand in a pocket became a number I could not afford to calculate. Chance sight flickered around me like a dying sign, giving just enough warning to make fear useful and not enough to make fear quiet. At the next building, a concrete planter dropped from a third-floor ledge. Marcus yanked me backward by the collar. It smashed exactly where my head had been. Dirt burst over the sidewalk. Frank stared at the broken planter. That one did not drive itself. A motorcycle came next. It jumped the curb near a crosswalk, engine screaming, front wheel aimed at my knees. I pulled Frank by his hospital coat. Marcus shoved both of us behind a parked car. The motorcycle clipped the mirror and kept going. No apology, no stop, no clean face to punch. Black Kiln had stopped sending men who bragged. It wanted the world itself to look careless. Brooke met us 2 blocks from the guild route with 2 officers and a face that said she had already run out of patience for my survival style. You are not going to the evaluation, she said. Lionel, on speaker through Marcus's phone, answered before I could. He is going. Hiding him lets Black Kiln choose the next hour, Brooke snapped. Letting him walk through staged accidents is not strategy. Victor's voice cut in from the same call. Brooke, stay with him. If they want it to look accidental, make witnesses expensive. Victor's line saved time. Witnesses expensive. Chance survival improves in crowds and cameras, 73%. I looked at the busy transit entrance nearby. Crowds, I said. Cameras. We make the next accident work harder. Frank lifted one finger. As the least medically approved person here, I object. Brooke looked at him. You are staying with Marcus. Frank lowered the finger. I support women in command. We moved through the station because hiding in open public felt wrong enough to be right. Brooke walked at my left. Marcus kept Frank behind us. A security camera hung over the turnstiles. People flowed around us, annoyed and alive. A man in a gray cap stood near the far wall. I saw him because he did not look at the train schedule. He looked at reflections, glass doors, polished ad panels, my face moving behind him. Chance gray cap man present at truck route, planter and motorcycle path, 76%. Finally, a shape in the fog. I did not point. The platform crowded as the train arrived. A shoulder hit my back. Chance shove onto tracks if I stand near edge, 69%. I grabbed Brooke's sleeve and stepped backward. A stranger's hand shoved empty air where my spine had been. Brooke turned, caught the wrist, and drove the man into the tile before he understood he had missed. The gray cap man moved. Not toward us. Away. That was more proof than a speech. Cap, I said. Brooke saw him. Marcus saw him. The gray cap man slicked into the crowd and vanished up the stairs with the patience of someone who had fallback plans. Brooke cuffed the shover and shoved him toward another officer. Talk. Who paid you? The man had blood on his lip and fear in his eyes. I don't know. Cash in a locker. Push and leave. That was it. No mastermind speech. No villain name. Just dirty money and a shove. Black Kiln had outsourced bad luck. Chance gray cap man switches to direct method after failed public accident, 84%. My stomach tightened. He is done pretending, I said. Brooke looked at me. Then we stopped letting him choose the scene. She was right, so I chose a scene he would hate. A crowded cafe across from the Guild building had big windows, too many phones, and outdoor tables pressed near a low lakeside rail. We took the table closest to the cameras. Brooke sat where she could watch the street. Marcus stood by the door with Frank, who complained until a waiter brought him coffee. I ordered food I did not want. Chance meal is safe, error. Chance drink is safe, 97%. Chance soup contains poison, 92%. I stared at the soup. Chance sight gave one clean answer and then went red again. The waiter was already gone. He was a Rowe label, not the danger. His hands had shaken because lunch rush made people shake. The danger watched to see whether I ate. Gray Cap sat across the street under the cafe awning, pretending to read a phone. I lifted the spoon. Brooke's hand moved under the table, ready to stop me. I gave her a tiny shake of my head. Then I brought the spoon to my mouth, tilted it against my lip without swallowing, and let the soup slide into the napkin in my hand. Gray Cap looked up. Only once. That once was enough. I wiped my mouth, forced my shoulders to loosen, and slumped back as if dizziness had found me. Frank saw me and nearly stood. Marcus clamped one hand on his shoulder. "Ow!" Frank hissed. "My emotions are injured." Gray Cap crossed the street. Brooke whispered, "Wait!" The man came closer, still careful, still not running. He looked at the soup bowl, then at my face. I let my hand drop near the table edge. He turned away fast. Not enough poison effect. He knew! I stood and stumbled toward the lakeside path behind the cafe. Brooke cursed under her breath and followed without making it obvious. Marcus and Frank moved wider. Gray Cap followed me to the rail. The lake below was dark under the afternoon sky, cold-looking, with little waves slapping the concrete wall. The path had joggers, cafe customers, and a pair of cyclists. Public enough for witnesses, close enough to water for an accident. Chance Gray Cap man attempts water death, 83%. Chance he has backup blade, 47%. Chance Brooke intercepts if I stop now, 38%. I leaned on the rail and coughed into the napkin. Gray Cap moved behind me. Then he slipped. Not fake at first, real. His shoe hit soup. I had spat onto the stone on purpose, and his balance broke just as he grabbed for my jacket. I turned. He grabbed air, struck the rail with his hip, and flipped halfway over it. For one absurd second, he hung there with both hands on the metal, eyes wide. Then he fell. The splash cut through the path noise. People shouted. Brooke reached the rail. "Do not jump!" The man thrashed below. His gray cap floated away. Chance drowning is staged, 68%. Chance drowning becomes real within 30 seconds, 81%. Chance Evan dies if he jumps, 39%. Chance Evan's system reserve collapses if he uses Plan C to calculate rescue, 100%. Plan C pulsed at the edge of my vision, bright and hungry. I did not use it. The man below screamed once, then swallowed water. His right leg kicked wrong. A strap from a maintenance float had wrapped around his ankle. Brooke shouted for a rescue ring. Marcus vaulted the lower fence but could not reach the water from his angle fast enough. Frank yelled, "Evan, no!" That was new. Frank usually yelled no because of money. This one came from somewhere better. The man in the water had tried to kill me with trucks, planters, motorcycles, a shove, and soup. I knew that as surely as I knew the lock on my old apartment had been changed. Letting him drown would have been easy. Clean even, no witness, no interrogation, no future revenge from a man who had already missed too many times. But the child on the stairs flashed in my head. Brooke's warning, Victor's breath when he saw her alive. The system offering to steal from my future whenever I was scared. I jumped. Cold hit like a fist. The lake swallowed my suit, my shoes, my breath, and every clever line I had left. I reached the man as he went under. He clawed at me, panicked and ugly. I hit his arm away and grabbed the back of his collar. He fought me even while drowning. Of course he did. I kicked toward the float strap, found it with one hand and yanked until my fingers burned. It loosened. Brooke threw the rescue ring. Marcus caught the rope from the lower ledge and hauled. The man coughed water into my face. "Stop fighting," I snarled. "You are terrible at dying and worse at killing." That was when Chance sight opened. Not red. Blue. External risk credit recorded. Selfless high-danger rescue accepted. Reserve stabilizing. The window burned so clear it hurt. Chance. Cade Rusk survives to custody. 96%. Cade Rusk. The name appeared before Brooke pulled him onto the lower ledge and found the ID in his soaked jacket. For once, the system gave me the label after the action had earned it. Brooke cuffed him while he coughed lake water onto the stone. "Cade Rusk," she said, rating the card. "You were very bad at accidents." Cade looked at me with bloodshot hatred. Then fear arrived behind it. "You should have let me die," he rasped. I sat on the wet concrete, shivering so hard my teeth clicked. "I considered it. Your review was mixed." Brooke looked at me. Something in her face changed again. She had seen me save a child. Now she had seen me save the man sent to kill me. That kind of witness was expensive. Marcus hauled me up by the back of my jacket. Frank limped down, took one look at my soaked suit, and looked genuinely offended. "That suit was new," he said. "So was the assassination. I hate growth." Cade coughed once and looked toward the guild building across the road. Brooke crouched beside him. "Who sent you?" Cade smiled with cracked lips. "You think he needed to send me? He just needed the guild room clear before the mold came out." Brooke's eyes sharpened. "Who?" Cade's smile died when he realized he was alive enough to answer later. He closed his mouth. That was fine. I did not need a confession in the water, I needed him breathing long enough to make someone else panic. We went to the American Antiquities Guild evaluation, wet, bruised, late, and surrounded by witnesses. It was not a formal hearing. Lionel made sure of that before we arrived. He turned the room into a public duel. Long table. Guild elders. Collector families. Candidate objects under cloth. Kendra Stone near the back, watching me like she hated that I had survived in an interesting way. Nina Price beside the sidewall, arms crossed, wearing the expression of a fake girlfriend who had been forced to hear real rumors all morning. Tessa stood with Rocket held by the collar, because apparently even the dog had status access now. Frank took a chair and announced to no one that mere drowning was contagious and he was avoiding it. Victor and Lionel stood at the front. Harlan Decker entered last. I had heard the name only after Cade's capture when Brooks' quick calls tied it to a guild candidate sponsor and several Black Kiln adjacent rooms. In person, Harlan did not look like a gang boss. He looked like the man who judged gang bosses' table manners. Older? Silver hair. Calm suit. Kind eyes that had probably ruined men who believed in kind eyes. He looked at my wet clothes and smiled gently. "Mr. Rowe," Harlan said. "Difficult day. My soup tried to kill me. The service was still better than your assassins." The room reacted. Harlan did not. That made him dangerous. Lionel tapped his cane once, the evaluation object. A staff member pulled the cloth from the table. Under it sat a heavy clay master mold, dark from repeated firing, shaped to press a raised eagle and dragon border into porcelain. It looked rough. Practical, not a finished treasure. A tool. Chance mold creates Black Kiln high-grade copies, 100%. Chance Harlan Decker values mold above personal cover, 82%. The system was back, not full, not free, but steady enough to make the room sharpen. Harlan said, "A production tool perhaps, interesting, but hardly proof of any living person's guilt. We are here to evaluate candidates, not dramatize rumors." "Good," I said. "Then you will not mind if I break it." His eyes flickered. Tiny, beautiful. Lionel placed a small hammer on the table. The room leaned in. No lecture, no lab, no board procedure, just a tool, a hammer, and a man who claimed not to care. Harlan folded his hands. "Destroying guild evidence would be childish." "It is not evidence if nobody owns it," I said. "You said it proves nothing. It may have historical value. So did the Libshi dragon vase until I hit it." Kendra covered her mouth, but not fast enough to hide the smile. Harlan's kindness thinned. "You are making a habit of vandalism. Only around fake authority. It keeps finding me." Victor stepped forward. "The candidates tied to this mold will be removed if its source is Black Kiln." Harlan looked at the elders, not at me. "And you would let a wet market boy decide that by tantrum?" There it was again. Market boy. Homeless joke. Upgraded for a better room. 2 days ago, that line would have hit bone. Now I had a hammer in my hand, and the room watching him use old-class contempt because new lies had run out. I raised the hammer over the mold. Chance Harlan stops me before first strike, 77%. I brought it down. Not on the mold. Beside it. The table cracked loud enough to make 3 elders jump. Harlan moved before he remembered not to. "Do not touch that mold," he snapped. The room turned to him. He saw it. Too late. I smiled. "Why?" Harlan's jaw tightened. I lifted the hammer again, this time over the mold's edge. "It is a random tool. It proves nothing. It has only possible historical value. Why does Harlan Decker care more about it than his candidates?" Harlan's calm face split. "Because idiots like you destroy what you do not understand," he said. "That mold made pieces your old masters praised for years. It opened rooms you begged to enter. You think breaking one cellar and one funding route kills Black Kiln? I built taste into their walls." Silence hit the room. Not shock. Verdict. Brooke moved first. Marcus moved with her. Harlan stepped back, but there was nowhere graceful left to stand. The guild elders pulled away from him like reputation was contagious. Lionel's voice cut through the room. "Every candidate tied to Harlan Decker is rejected. Every object tied to this mold leaves guild consideration." Harlan looked at Victor. "You cannot erase me," Victor answered. "No. You just introduced yourself," Frank whispered loudly. "That was a confession with furniture." Nina, from the side wall, looked at me and shook her head. "I cannot believe that line works for him," Tessa said. "Rocket believed in him first." Kendra stared at Harlan like she was watching a richer version of herself lose a room and taking notes on what not to do. Brooke cuffed Harlan in front of the table. He did not fight. Men like him did not like touching consequence directly. Cade had. Simon had. Gerald had. Harlan had paid them all to keep the room clean. Now the room was dirty with his own words. Black Kiln's fake authority collapsed in front of the table. The syndicate lost its guild cover, its candidate route, its clean money bridge through Astor Bridge, its assassin, and the old calm face it had planned to wear at the table. Lionel picked up the principal card with my name on it. This time he did not place it under his palm, he handed it to me. "Evan Rowe," Lionel said, loud enough for the room. "Principal member, do not make me regret surviving this much stupidity." Frank stood so fast he hurt himself. "I know a principal." Marcus pushed him back into the chair. Victor put one hand on Brooke's shoulder. Brooke looked at me, then at Cade being dragged past the outer door, then at Harlan standing silent in cuffs. "Hide it better," she said softly. "I tried. The soup was aggressive." She almost smiled. Nina walked over and straightened my ruined tie. "For the record, my fake boyfriend becoming publicly important is very inconvenient for my lies. Your lies will adapt. They always do." Tessa pulled Rocket back before the dog could jump on my wetsuit. "He wants to congratulate you. He wants to ruin dry cleaning." Kendra passed behind them and stopped just long enough to look at the card in my hand. For once, she did not threaten me. She said, "You are still impossible." I said, "Now with seating." Her mouth twitched like she hated that she almost laughed. Then she walked away with less power than she had arrived with and enough pride to make future peace expensive. The guild room emptied slowly, because rich people like to pretend exits were strategy. I stayed until Victor finished speaking with Brooke, until Lionel locked the mold away under Marcus's hand, until Frank stopped trying to sell his eyewitness account by the paragraph. By sunset, the day had taken my suit, my body heat, and several years off my nervous system. It gave me a card, an enemy in cuffs, allies who had seen the cost, and one more door. 2 days after my landlord changed the lock, I stood in front of a Harbor City condo with a key in my hand. Not a borrowed key, not a motel key, not a key tag sold as a joke in a ballroom. Mine. The agent was only a role with paperwork and nervous eyes. Victor had pushed the closing through cleanly, Lionel had called it a housing correction, Frank had asked whether partners got guest rooms, and Nina had texted that my first home needed better lies. Tessa promised Rocket would inspect it. Brooke told me to buy cameras before furniture. I put the key in the lock. Chance door opens for Evan Rowe, 100%. I laughed. The old lock had thrown me out. This one turned because I told it to. Inside, the condo was empty. Bare floor, bare walls. No antique, no gala, no old master, no crowd waiting to see whether I tripped. Just a room that could not be taken by one petty man with a new metal plate. Chance sight floated at the edge of my vision, quieter now. Chance Evan uses power greedily tomorrow, 61%. Chance Evan pays a cost if he forgets today, 100%. Fair. The day my luck became expensive, I learned which chances I was still willing to pay for. I stepped inside, closed the door behind me, and listened to my own lock click.